I rented a cabin in Washington's Cascade Mountains to unplug for a week, but on the first night, an echo of my own cough returned with a delay of several seconds, as if someone were mimicking it from the basement. That was just the beginning of the worst night of my life. My name is Isolde Varden, 34 years old, manuscript editor for a publishing house in Seattle. Divorced 8 months ago after discovering that my ex-husband Quillen had been cheating on me for 2 years with his assistant. In that second week of November 2023, after months of therapy and sleepless nights in my apartment, where every corner reminded me of what I had lost, I decided I needed to escape. Completely. No connection. No people. Just me. Silence. And the opportunity to finally process. I found the listing on Airbnb. Remote mountain cabin. Total disconnection. No Wi-Fi. No neighbors. Absolute privacy. The photos showed a rustic wooden structure with a stone fireplace, windows overlooking dense forest, and a description that promised miles of solitude. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. The owner, a certain Evander, according to the messages, was friendly but distant. The key is under the mat on the back porch. Firewood is stacked next to it. Cell phones don't work up there, but there is a landline if you need it. Enjoy the silence. I left Seattle on Monday, November 13th at 2 p.m. The forecast warned of rain, but I didn't care. Something about driving in the rain had always been cathartic for me. The constant sound, the concentration it required, the way the world was reduced to the windshield and the road ahead. The route took 2 hours, according to Google Maps. First the highway, then increasingly narrow state roads, finally a gravel road that wound up the mountain through Douglas firs and spruce trees that blocked most of the daylight, even at 4 p.m. The rain had started around that time, a fine rain that made everything seem blurry and hazy. The windshield was constantly fogged up, despite the heat being turned up to maximum. The radio had lost signal long ago, replaced by static that occasionally picked up fragments of ghost conversations, cut-off voices, distorted music, interference that sounded almost like words. The GPS died 15 minutes into the gravel road. No signal. But Evander had sent detailed instructions. Follow the main road for 8 miles. When you see the large fallen tree with a white painted trunk, turn right onto a barely visible road. Continue for 2 more miles. The cabin will be on your left. I found the tree. The road to the right was more of a trail than a road. 2 ruts of dirt between overgrown vegetation. My Subaru handled well, but with every minute I was getting deeper into isolation. And then, there it was. The cabin. Exactly like the photos, but somehow more so. Small, vulnerable, lonely. It was almost 5 p.m. Sunset in November in these mountains came early. The light was already fading, turning the surrounding forest into a mass of gray shadows. I parked and got out. The air was cold, damp, with that smell of wet pine and earth. Absolute silence except for the dripping of rain on leaves. No distant cars, no planes, nothing. Just nature breathing around me. The cabin was 2 stories, although the second floor was more of an attic with a sloped ceiling, wood darkened by years of weather. A covered porch wrapped around the front. A stone chimney visible from the outside, rising up the side. I found the key under the back mat as promised. The lock resisted, rusty or swollen with moisture, but finally gave way. The door opened with a creak that immediately felt too loud in the silence, as if it had announced my arrival to... who? There was no one for miles. The interior smelled of old wood, dampness, and something else. Cold ashes from the fireplace, perhaps. Dust. Time. The main room was open. A living area with a worn sofa and armchairs, a small dining table, and a basic kitchen along one wall. The fireplace, dominated, huge, and stone with firewood already stacked inside, ready to be lit. To the left, a steep staircase led up to the attic. To the right, a door that I assumed led to the basement. I brought in my things, suitcase, groceries, books, laptop, although I couldn't use it for work without Wi-Fi, just for writing. Journaling, perhaps. Process. By 5:30 p.m., it was almost completely dark outside. I turned on the lights. Some worked, some didn't. The electrical system was clearly old and inconsistent. But the fireplace, that was the priority. There were matches on the mantel. The fire lit easily. The wood was dry, well prepared. Flames growing, crackling, casting warm orange light that made the cabin feel less hostile, more welcoming. I made myself a simple dinner, pasta with jarred sauce. I ate on the sofa in front of the fire, reading the book I had brought with me, but unable to really concentrate. My mind wandered. To Quillen, to the divorce, to the photos I had found, the lies, everything I had built crumbling. That was why I was here, to let it go, to find some kind of peace. Around 8 p.m., I felt a tickle in my throat. I cleared it. A dry, short cough. The kind you do without thinking when something is bothering you. And then, seconds later, I heard it again. My cough. Exactly my cough. The same tone, the same rhythm, but not immediately. Not like a normal echo bouncing off the walls, but with a delay. 3, maybe 4 seconds. And it was coming from below, from the basement. I froze. The book fell from my hands. Listening, silence, just the crackling fire. It's just weird acoustics, I told myself. Old cabins have weird echoes, spaces under the floor, ducts. But my heart was beating faster, because something about that echo. It didn't feel like an echo. It felt like imitation, as if someone had heard my cough and reproduced it. I got up. I walked to the basement door. It was old dark wood with peeling paint. No lock visible from this side, just a stained brass knob. I put my ear to it. Listening. Nothing. Just my own rapid breathing. This is stupid, I whispered to myself. There's no one down there. It's a cabin in the middle of nowhere, locked, secure. But I needed to check, because I couldn't sleep without knowing. I looked for a flashlight, found one in a kitchen drawer, a heavy metal model that took D batteries. I turned it on, a bright beam cutting through the darkness. I opened the basement door, stairs descending into darkness, steep, wooden, no railing. The smell that rose up was worse than in the main room, damp, musty, and something else. Something organic, not exactly rotten, but lived in, as if something inhabited that space. Hello? My voice sounded small, stupid. Who was I expecting to answer? Silence. I started down. Each step creaked, protesting under my weight. The temperature dropped with each step, the air thicker, harder to breathe. The basement was larger than expected. The beam of my flashlight revealed a space that extended under the entire cabin. Low ceiling. I had to duck slightly. Compacted dirt floor, stone and wood walls, and things, so many things. Stacked boxes, old furniture covered with sheets, rusty cans, tools, gardening equipment, decades of accumulation. I moved the flashlight slowly, sweeping corners, searching. For what? A hidden person? An animal that had gotten in? Nothing. Just dust floating in the beam, thick cobwebs connecting beams. Shadows that jumped and moved as the light passed. No one here, I said aloud, trying to convince myself. Just your imagination. But then, as I turned to go back to the stairs, I heard it, creaking, upstairs, in the main room, directly above, like footsteps, someone walking, weight on old wood causing it to flex. I froze, heart pounding now, because I was downstairs. So, who was upstairs? Another creak, then another, slow steps, deliberate, crossing the living room floor toward the stairs, the ones leading up to the attic. Someone was in the cabin. Someone had come in while I was in the basement. Or they had been here all along, hidden, waiting until I came down. Panic rose, real, visceral. I needed to get out of the basement, but the stairs, the only stairs that went up, they were there, where the footsteps had been. What if whoever it was waiting upstairs? In the darkness by the basement door, I turned off the flashlight. Complete darkness enveloped me. But at least I wouldn't be seen. I wouldn't be a target. I moved by memory, toward where I thought the stairs were, hands outstretched, touching air, then wood, the staircase frame. I started climbing, slowly, trying not to make any noise. Every creak of the steps sounded like an explosion in my ears. I reached the door, still ajar, just as I had left it, dim light from the fire filtering through. I stopped, listening. The footsteps had stopped, but I could feel it. A presence. Someone was there, in the room, waiting, scream, demand they identify themselves, run to the front door and try to escape. I pushed the door, open, quickly, out of the basement, flashlight turning on, sweeping the room. Empty. No one by the door, no one in the room. The fire still crackling, the sofa where she had been sitting, empty. "Who's there?" I shouted. "I know someone's there. Show yourself." Silence. Then, from above, from the attic, another creak, heavier this time, as if someone had jumped or dropped something. I looked up at the ceiling, at the staircase leading up. I couldn't see the attic from here, just the steep staircase disappearing into darkness. "I'm not going up there," I whispered. "I'm not going to do that." Instead, I went to the front door. I needed to get out, get to my car, drive back. It didn't matter that it was night. It didn't matter that it was raining. I couldn't stay. I grabbed the doorknob. I turned it. It didn't move. I pulled harder. Nothing. Locked. But how? I hadn't locked it. Not from the inside. Panic rising. I tried again, shaking, pushing. The door wouldn't budge. The window. I could break a window. I ran to the nearest window, grabbed a chair, lifting it, ready to swing. And then I saw it, in the reflection of the glass. Behind me, a figure, at the back of the room, next to the basement door I had left open. Tall, thin, hooded, standing completely still, watching me. I dropped the chair, turned around. No one there. I looked back at the reflection. The figure was still there. But when I looked at directly, nothing. "No," I gasped. No, this isn't real." I forced myself to look again, slowly, to where the figure should be. And there, barely visible in the shadows between the light of the fire and the darkness, silhouette, real, solid, not imagined, person, wearing a hoodie, dark, face hidden in shadow. But I could see, eyes, white, glowing slightly, reflecting the fire. "Who are you?" My voice barely worked. "What do you want?" The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. Then, slowly, it raised a hand, pointing, at me, and smiled. I could see teeth in the darkness, too white, too perfect. I screamed, finally. A real scream, full of terror. And I ran, not toward the doors, both locked, useless, but toward the back of the cabin, toward the kitchen, where I remembered seeing a back door. I knocked over a chair, stumbling. But I kept my balance. I reached the kitchen. The back door was there, smaller, unpainted, probably for service use. I grabbed the knob. I prayed. I pulled. It opened. Thank God it opened. The cold night air hit me. Rain, wind, total darkness. But I didn't care. It was escape. I jumped off the back porch, landing on muddy ground, slipping, falling, getting up, the flashlight still in my hand. I turned it on, beam cutting through the rain, revealing trees, dense forest in every direction. My car. Where was my car? In front. I needed to circle the cabin. I started running, through the undergrowth, branches whipping me like lashes, face, arms, tearing at my clothes. The wind whipped, stronger out here, making trees creak and groan. Sounds like voices, like footsteps, like pursuit. I looked back, toward the cabin, the light from the fire visible through the windows. And there, in a window, a silhouette, the figure, watching me escape. No, not just watching, moving, toward another window, following my progress, tracking me. "Get away from me," I shouted into the night, at the figure. And whatever this was, I kept running, circling the cabin, seeing my car ahead. Salvation. I reached the driver's door. I reached into my pocket. The keys. Where were the keys? Inside. I'd left them inside, on the table next to my bag. "No," I moaned. "No, no, no." I looked back at the cabin. I would have to go back, go inside, get the keys, then escape. But the figure, it was inside, waiting. I couldn't go back there. The landline phone. Evander had mentioned a landline phone. For emergencies, it must be inside. I could call, ask for help, but that also meant going back. Or I could run down the road back to civilization. It was 8 miles, then 2 more on the main road. 10 miles total, on foot, in the dark, in the rain. Impossible. I would get lost, or die of hypothermia, or something worse. I had to go back, find the phone, call for help, hide until it arrived. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. To think. The back door was still open. I could go in, move fast, find the phone. I didn't have to encounter the figure, just avoid it, be faster. I approached the back door, flashlight forward, illuminating the kitchen, empty, clear. I went in, silently, every sense on high alert. The phone. Where could it be? I hadn't seen it in the main room. Kitchen. I looked around. No. Wall. I scanned. There. Next to the basement door. An old rotary phone. Faded yellow. With a stretched cord. Perfect. Terrible. It meant crossing the room. Passing where the figure had been. I moved from the kitchen. Toward the living room. Close to the wall. Eyes scanning every shadow. The figure wasn't visible, but I could feel it. Presence. As if watching me from somewhere. From the shadows. Or from above. From the attic. I reached for the phone. I picked up the receiver. It rang, searching for a tone. Nothing. No dial tone. No static. Dead. I pressed the hang-up button. Again. Again. Nothing. The line was dead. Cut. Or disconnected. "Of course," I whispered. Tears of frustration and fear. Of course it doesn't work. A noise. Upstairs. Stairs creaking, someone coming down from the attic. I looked, and there, emerging from the darkness of the stairwell, the figure, descending, step by step, slow, deliberate. The hood still hid its face. But I could see more now. Hands, dirty, stained, holding something. Something that glinted in the firelight. Knife, not big, but sharp, reflecting orange. "Please," I said. "I don't know who you are, but please, just let me go." The figure reached the bottom of the stairs. It paused, tilted its head, as if considering. Then it spoke, male voice. Raspy, as if it hadn't spoken in a long time. "You can't leave, not yet." "Why? What do you want?" This cabin, it's mine, not yours. Mine." "Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I can leave. Just let me get my things and—" "You don't understand." He approached, knife raised slightly. "I've been living here, months, since the owner stopped coming. It's my home. And you invaded." A squatter. The cabin had been squatted in. And Evander didn't know. Or he did and didn't care. Or, I didn't come here to cause trouble. I just needed to get away. For my life. For a week. That's all. Everyone says that. Everyone wants to get away. But where do I go? When people like you come. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. It's not my... Look, this doesn't have to be violent. You can stay, I'll leave. I'll walk if I have to. And call the police as soon as you get to town. Have me arrested. Send me back to the streets. No, I won't call, I promise. Promises mean nothing. He moved closer. 3 feet now. 2. Everyone lies. Everyone betrays. I learned that. Please. I backed away. Hit the wall, no more space. Please don't hurt me. I don't want to hurt you. I want to scare you. Enough for you to understand that you're not welcome. That this place is mine. I understand. Just let me go. Go where? Your car's blocked. The door's locked from the outside while you were in the basement. The phone. I cut the line yesterday when I saw you arrive. There's no escape. Just you. And me. And this long night. The terror was paralyzing. Complete. This man. This squatter. He hadn't just been here. He had been planning. Since I arrived, he had seen me come in, and he had decided to trap me. The echo, I said. My cough. It was you, imitating it, to scare me. It works, doesn't it? Strange acoustics. People always think it's the house, but it's me, watching, listening, echoing, as a warning. How long have you been here, in this cabin? 6 months, since May. I found the place empty. The owner doesn't come except in summer, so I moved in, basement first, then attic, getting to know the house, every creak, every shadow, becoming part of it. What about the others, the tenants who rented before me? Not many. Most come in the summer. Those, I avoid them. I hide better. But November, winter coming. I thought I'd be alone. Then you showed up. I'm sorry. I won't come back. Alone. Please. It's too late for sorry. He raised the knife. But don't worry. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not a murderer. Just, I'm going to scare you enough that you'll never come back, that you'll never tell anyone, that you'll remember it as a nightmare, not as a crime. He charged, fast, faster than expected. I moved, pure instinct, diving to the side, toward the sofa, tripping over it. He followed me, the knife swinging, missing by inches, hitting the back of the sofa, tearing fabric. I got up. I ran, toward the back door again. The only way out I knew, but he was fast. He caught up with me, hand grabbing my jacket, pulling, spinning me around, the knife up, coming down, towards my face. I blocked with my arm, metal cutting, pain exploding, hot, wet, immediate blood. I screamed. I kicked, my foot connecting with his knee. He growled, staggering. I ran, through the back door, back into the night, into the rain, into the woods. Not toward the car this time, but into the woods, into the darkness, where I could hide, where size and speed wouldn't matter as much as knowledge of the terrain. And he knew the cabin. But me, I could get lost in the woods. I ran blindly, the flashlight lost somewhere during the struggle, just trusting my senses, arms out in front, protecting my face from branches. The branches whipped me anyway, like claws, scratching, cutting, adding to the wounds I already had. I could hear him behind me, chasing, breaking through the undergrowth, cursing. You can't hide. I know these woods. Maybe he did, but I was desperate, and fear gave me speed he didn't have. I ran and ran until my lungs burned, until my legs screamed, until I couldn't hear his footsteps behind me. Then, I stumbled. Root or rock, I didn't see. I fell, rolling, down a small slope, landing hard in the clearing, open space between trees, with the moon, when clouds allowed, providing dim light. And from here, I could see the cabin below, maybe 100 meters away, windows lit by the fire that was still burning, and in one window, a silhouette, my silhouette, standing, looking out. But I was here, outside, in the clearing. So who was that? My brain struggled to understand, to process. The figure was inside. It had been chasing me, so how could it also be in the window? Unless she had come back, faster than me, knowing a shortcut. Or there were always two squatters, working together, one chasing me into the woods, the other staying behind, creating confusion. The terror returned, because if there were two, then one could be. Anywhere, even here, in the woods, approaching from a different direction. I needed to move. I couldn't stay in the clearing, too exposed. I got up, looking for direction. Any direction away from the cabin, toward what? The road, if I could find the road, I could follow it, walk back, eventually find help. I chose a direction, randomly basically, and I started walking, fast but not running, trying to be quiet, not to reveal my position, but the forest was noisy. Every step crunched leaves, broke twigs, echoed in the silence. And then, I heard it, a voice, calling, not from the cabin but from the forest, close. Isolde, I can hear you, I know where you are. He used my name. How did he know my name? Then I remembered. The reservation, Airbnb, my profile, all my information. Just come out, let's talk, like adults. It doesn't have to be this way. I didn't believe him. How could I? But I couldn't keep running forever either. Eventually, I would collapse, from exhaustion or injuries. The cut on my arm was still bleeding. I could feel it, warm and sticky. I needed strategy, plan, the road. If I could find it, I could use my advantage. He would expect me to run far away, but if I turned back, toward the road, I could. What? Follow him into the darkness, possibly twist an ankle or get lost. But it was better than this, better than waiting to be found. I changed direction, toward where I thought the road should be, based on intuition, hope. I walked, for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, every noise making me jump, every shadow a threat, and then, there, through the trees, an opening, the gravel road, barely visible but definitely there. Relief flooded in, until I reached it, starting to follow it, downhill, toward the main road. But there was a problem. Following the road meant being visible. Anyone on the road, like the squatter, would easily see me. But leaving the road in the dark was inviting getting lost. I compromised. I walked parallel to the road, between trees, using it as a guide but not on it. Slower, more difficult, but safer. Time lost its meaning. There was only walking, one foot in front of the other, trying not to think about the cold, about pain, about fear, and then lights. Ahead, not from a cabin but from a car. Headlights, on the main road, someone driving, at this hour, in this remote area. Opportunity, my only opportunity. I came out of the trees, running toward the road, waving my arms, screaming, "Help, please, help!" The car, a pickup truck, slowed down. It stopped, window down, older man looking out with an alarmed expression. "What the hell? Please!" Someone chased me. "From the cabin, I need help." He hesitated, looking at me, seeing blood, torn clothes, terror on my face. "Get in, quick." I didn't wait. I opened the passenger door, got in. "Drive, please." Okay. He accelerated. "What happened? Who was chasing you?" "I don't know. Squatter. In the cabin I rented. He attacked me. Tried to. I don't know what he tried to do, but please just take me to the city, to the police." "Okay. The nearest station is in North Bend. 40 minutes. Are you okay? Do you need a hospital?" "I don't know. My arm. It's cut, but police first. They need to know. About him. About the cabin." The driver, his name was Caspian, I later learned, drove. Fast but safely on these mountain roads, talking to keep me conscious, asking my name, where I was from, what I was doing here. I answered in fragments, telling my story. It sounded crazy as I spoke, but he just listened, nodding. We arrived in North Bend. At a small police station, he helped me inside. Officers took one look and immediately called an ambulance. I spent the next 4 hours giving a statement. Between medical treatment, 7 stitches in my arm, tetanus shot, antibiotics, describing the squatter, the cabin, everything. Officers took notes, sent a unit to check. They came back 2 hours later. The cabin is empty. No signs of recent occupation, fire extinguished, no persons found. But did you check? The basement, the attic. We checked everything, thoroughly. If someone was there, they left. And they didn't leave much evidence. Much? Did they leave anything? Signs that someone slept in the attic. An old sleeping bag. Some cans of food, but that's all. No identification. No way to track who. What about my things? My suitcase, my laptop. Everything's there, untouched. We can get it back for you if you want. No, I don't want anything from there. Just make sure it's empty, that it can't hurt anyone else. They contacted Evander, the owner, who arrived the next day, visibly upset. I had no idea. No one reported it. I checked the property, but not recently. Months. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I offered to sue him, but my lawyer said it would be difficult to prove negligence, and honestly, I just wanted to forget, to move on. But I can't, because I still see him. In my dreams, the hooded figure, the white eyes. The silhouette in the window that was me but wasn't, and I still wonder. Who was it? Where is it now? Did it find another cabin, another victim? And if I ever cough again, in an empty house, and I hear an echo, delayed, too human, I'll know that I'm not alone, that someone is there, in the shadows, in the basement, in the attic, watching, listening, waiting, to imitate me, to scare me, to remind me that privacy is an illusion, that solitude is dangerous, and that sometimes the echo is not a strange sound, it's a warning. I invited a Tinder match named Caspian to my weekend cabin on Lake Chelan in Washington. But at dawn on Saturday, I found fresh footprints on the porch that weren't his or mine. Large boots, at least size 12, sunk deep into the mud from the night's rain, and they surrounded the entire cabin, as if someone had been circling us while we slept. My name is Dagny Merrick, 30 years old, real estate agent in Seattle, divorced a year ago from a marriage that should have ended much sooner. And that weekend of November 10th, 2023, after 2 months of chatting with Caspian on the app, conversations that started out casual but became increasingly intimate, more promising, I finally decided to take the plunge, invite him to my place, to my space, to my family's cabin that I inherited from my grandfather. The cabin was 3 hours from Seattle, tucked away in dense forest overlooking the lake. 2 bedrooms, stone fireplace, private dock, the perfect kind of place to unwind, and to get to know someone in a more relaxed setting than a noisy downtown coffee shop. Caspian had been enthusiastic. Sounds perfect. I'll bring beer and extra firewood. Do you need anything else? Just bring yourself, I had replied, flirtatious, excited in ways I hadn't felt since before the divorce. He arrived on Friday at 6 p.m. just as the sun was beginning to set. His truck, a blue Ford F-150, appeared on the gravel road, kicking up dust. He parked next to my Subaru and got out with a smile that was exactly like his photos. 33 according to his profile, tall with a well-groomed beard, hazel eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He was wearing jeans, a flannel shirt, and worn work boots. Dagny, he said, approaching with a 6-pack of beer in one hand and a bag of groceries in the other. Finally, in person. Caspian, you're just in time. The sunset here is incredible. And it was. The lake sparkled like a broken mirror in the evening light, golden and orange fragments reflecting among the waves. The surrounding pine trees darkened into black silhouettes against the sky, which was turning from blue to purple. I showed him the cabin. Simple, but cozy. The main room with a fireplace already crackling. I had lit it an hour earlier. Small but functional kitchen, 2 bedrooms upstairs, bathroom with a shower that sometimes took a while to heat up the water. It's perfect, he said. Exactly the kind of getaway I needed. Work has been crazy lately. Construction, right? Contractor. Renovations mainly. It pays well, but the stress kills you. I made dinner, steaks on the porch grill, salad, the baked potatoes my grandmother always made. We opened beers. We talked easily, laughing about stories of previous disastrous dates, stressful jobs, complicated families. The conversation flowed naturally, like it had flowed through texting, but better. with body language, with eye contact, with the chemistry you can only confirm in person. Around 9 p.m., we moved to the porch, with chairs facing the lake, a campfire that Caspian had expertly built, the stars coming out in a sky that I never saw so clearly in the city. "This is," he said, looking at the lake, the fire reflecting in his eyes, "exactly what I needed. Thank you for inviting me." "Thanks for coming, and for not being weird. You know, online dating is like the lottery." "I know. I've had my share of profiles that don't match reality." He laughed. "But you're exactly as I expected, better even." The flirting intensified. We moved closer, his hand finding mine on the armrest between us, fingers intertwining, the kind of contact that sends electricity down your arm. Around 11 p.m., we kissed, soft at first, then more urgent. The fire crackling, the lake whispering against the shore, the world shrinking to this moment, this connection. "Should we go inside?" he whispered against my lips. "Yes." We went inside. We went up to the master bedroom, and what followed was good, really good. The kind of physical connection that matches the mental one. Rare. Special. Afterward, we lay in the dark, his arm around me, my head on his chest, listening to his heart slow down. That post-coital satisfaction that makes everything feel perfect. Promising. "I could get used to this," he murmured. "To what?" "To you. To this place. To this." He squeezed slightly. "It's been a while since something felt this. Good." "I know. Me too." We fell asleep like that, entwined, safe, happy. And then, something woke me up. I don't know what. It wasn't a specific sound, just that feeling that something was wrong. My subconscious brain processing something my conscious mind hadn't registered yet. I looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. Caspian was fast asleep, snoring lightly, completely oblivious. I got up, careful not to wake him. I put on his flannel shirt that had been left on the floor. I went downstairs. The cabin was dark except for dying embers in the fireplace, but enough light to navigate, to see that. The front door was ajar. I froze on the bottom step, staring at the door that I was sure, absolutely sure, I had locked before going upstairs. Ajar, slightly, maybe 2 inches, with cold November air seeping in. Maybe I didn't close it properly, I whispered to myself. Maybe the latch didn't catch. Old houses, old doors. It happens. But my stomach churned, because I knew I had closed it. Locked. I had turned the latch. I had checked, like I always did, like my grandfather had taught me. "Always lock up in the mountains, Dagny. You never know what might come in." I walked over to the door. I pushed it shut. I turned the latch, checking that it caught properly. This time it felt right, secure, locked. "I'm just being paranoid," I told myself. New relationship, new man in my space. Of course I'm hyper-vigilant. I went back upstairs. I slipped back into bed. Caspian muttered something incoherent but didn't wake up. I tried to sleep. But my mind was racing. Had the door been ajar? Or had it been a shadow? An illusion? And then, another thought. Darker. What if Caspian had opened it while I was asleep, going out for some reason, smoking, making a call, something? But that didn't make sense. Why not close it when he came back? Eventually. Exhaustion won out. I fell asleep, restless, with fragmented dreams of doors opening, of shadows moving. The light of dawn woke me. 7:23 a.m. Caspian was still asleep, his face peaceful, completely relaxed. I got up, put on jeans and a sweater, went downstairs to make coffee. The kitchen smelled of cold ashes from the fireplace. I put the coffee pot on. I looked out the window toward the lake while I waited. The water was calm, morning mist floating, beautiful, peaceful. And then I saw it. On the porch, from this angle, the footprints, in the mud by the steps, clear, distinct. Large boots, not Caspian's work boots I'd seen last night. These were different, larger, with a deeper tread pattern. I went outside, coffee cup in hand. I walked down the porch steps. The footprints were fresh. The mud still wet. It must have rained last night, lightly, not enough to wake me. And after the rain, these footprints. I followed them, around the side of the cabin, evenly spaced, deliberate, not vague like someone walking casually, but measured, like a patrol, like surveillance. They circled the entire cabin, down the right side, behind, left side, back to the front. A complete circuit. And in some places, they stopped, next to windows, as if someone had been standing there, looking inside. The coffee in my hand was shaking, spilling slightly, burning my fingers, but I could barely feel it. Someone had been here, last night, while we were sleeping, walking around, watching. Must be a hiker. Caspian's voice behind me made me jump. He had come downstairs, dressed only in jeans, with messy hair. Lost, maybe, seeing if anyone was awake. And he didn't knock. He didn't ask for help. Maybe he didn't want to scare us. It's late at night. Couple sleeping. Better to just move on. These footprints, they go all around the cabin. That's not lost hiker behavior. It's something else. What else? His tone was light, trying to downplay it, but I could see it. In his eyes. Concern. He felt it too. I don't know, but I don't like it. Look, probably just a local, hunter, fisherman, checking properties, making sure there are no vandals or whatever, without announcing themselves. Mountain people are strange. They don't follow the same social rules. It's probably nothing. I wanted to believe him. I wanted this to be nothing. Paranoia. An overreaction, but the footprints. They were real, and their pattern. It was disturbing. Let's check, Caspian said. Make sure nothing's damaged, that no one tried to break in. We walked the perimeter, the windows all intact. The doors, back and side, locked. No signs of forced entry. See, he said, all secure. Just someone being nosy. Then why was the front door ajar last night? What? When I went downstairs at 4 a.m., the front door was open, just a crack, but definitely open. His expression changed. Real concern now. Are you sure? Absolutely. I closed it, but did you go outside after we went to bed? No. I slept through the night until you woke me up moving around. Then someone opened it from the outside. Or it was not closed properly, and the wind or something. There was no wind last night. Silence, both of us processing the implications. We should leave, I said. Pack up, go back to Seattle. And let whoever, if there is anyone, scare us. Dagny, it's daytime. We're safe. And honestly, it's probably nothing. Just weird coincidences that our imaginations are connecting. I don't feel safe. Then we stay inside today. We lock everything. We put chains on the doors. And if anything else happens, anything, we leave immediately. Deal? I hesitated. Part of me was screaming, leave now. But another part, the part that had been alone for so long, that had found connection with this man, that didn't want fear to ruin something good, that part said, stay. Okay, but at the first sign of trouble, we're leaving. Absolutely. We spent the morning inside. Breakfast, conversation, trying to return to normal from last night, to recapture that ease. But there was tension now. Every creak of the cabin made us pause. Every shadow across the windows made us look. The cabin that had been a refuge now felt exposed, vulnerable. Around noon, I decided to shower, wash away the stress, relax. I'm going to take a shower, I told Caspian, who was reading on the sofa. If you need anything, I'll be fine. Go ahead, relax. I went upstairs, closed the bathroom door, turned on the water, waited for it to heat up. It always took a while. And while I waited, I looked out the bathroom window. Small, frosted glass, but I could see shapes. The forest outside, the trees, and something else, movement. Among the trees, a figure standing maybe 50 meters into the forest, barely visible between the trunks, looking toward the cabin, toward this window. The steam was starting to fog up the glass, but I could still see. The figure wasn't moving, just watching. "Caspian," I called, trying to keep my voice calm. "Can you come up for a moment?" Footsteps on the stairs, quick. He must have detected urgency in my tone. "What's wrong?" "There, in the woods, see?" He looked, scanning among the trees. "Where?" "By the big pine tree, with it. Wait, it's gone." The figure had disappeared, as if it had never been there. "Dagny, are you sure you saw something?" "Yes. Someone standing. Looking this way. Maybe a deer or a shadow. Forests play tricks. It wasn't a deer. It was a person, I'm sure." He looked at me, assessing, deciding whether to believe me or if I was being paranoid. "All right," he finally said. "Enough, we pack up. We leave. Now." Relief flooded me. "Thank you. Go get dressed. I'll start loading the car." I got dressed quickly. Jeans, sweatshirt, boots. I went downstairs. Caspian was standing by the front door, his bag already packed, my suitcase beside it. "Ready?" "Yes." He opened the door and froze. "What?" Then I saw it. On the porch, directly in front of the door. Something that hadn't been there this morning. A branch, a large one, deliberately placed, blocking the way, like a barrier or a message, and tied to it, with string. A doll, a rag doll, old, dirty, with button eyes staring at us. "What the hell?" Caspian whispered. "Don't touch it. Just, let's go, through the back door." But when we went to the kitchen, to the back door, we found the same thing, another branch, another doll, as if someone had sealed the exits, as a warning or a trap. "The windows," I said. "We can get out through the windows. Or we can confront whoever is doing this." Caspian moved toward the front door. "This is ridiculous. It's intimidation, and I'm not going to let some local psychopath." "No," I grabbed him. "Don't go out there. That's what they want, to separate us, to make us vulnerable. Dagny, we're two adults. Whoever is out there, if there is anyone, can't take both of us. How do you know it's just one? What if there are several?" That paused him. "You think there's more than one?" "I don't know, but these dolls, on both doors." At almost the same time, either there are two, or they worked fast while we were packing. Thud. On the living room window, loud, like a fist hitting glass. We both jumped, spinning, and there, pressed against the glass from outside, face, bearded, bloodshot eyes, mouth open, showing stained teeth, looking straight at me. I blinked, and it was gone, leaving only an oily mark where its face had been. "Shit!" Caspian ran to the window, looking outside. I saw it. It was there. "Caspian, please, don't go outside. That son of a bitch needs to learn." "Please," my voice cracked. Real terror now, not just discomfort, but genuine fear. "Please stay inside." He turned to me. He saw my expression, and his anger softened. Okay, I'll stay. But we need to do something. Call the police. Is there cell phone reception? We checked. Both phones, no signal, as always in this place. That's why I had installed a landline years ago. Caspian picked up the receiver. He pressed the button. Dead. The line is dead. It must be cut. Yes. Whoever is doing this, they're isolating us. Scratching, on the wall. Loud, like nails. But not small like rats. Large, deliberate, human. Coming from the north wall, where the bedroom was, upstairs. "It's in the house," I whispered. "How is it in the house?" "It's not inside. It's outside scratching, trying to scare us." More scratching, moving, along the wall toward the corner, toward the basement door, in the kitchen, where I never went, where Grandpa kept old tools and things no one used. The door was closed, always closed, bolted from the kitchen side. But as we watched, the knob began to turn, slowly, testing, pressing. "There's someone in the basement," I said. My voice barely worked. "In the basement. How did they get in? There must be an outside entrance, an access door I forgot about, or a broken window." The knob stopped turning. For a moment, I thought they had given up. Then, a bang, loud, against the door, like a shoulder or a whole body throwing itself against it. The door shook. The latch held, but it was old, not designed for this kind of force. Another bang, the wood creaking. "We need a barricade," Caspian said, already moving, pushing the kitchen table against the basement door. I helped. Between the two of us, we moved it. Heavy, solid oak, enough to reinforce the door. The banging continued, more frantic, with audible growls now, animal sounds, wordless rage. "Who is it?" I shouted. "What do you want?" Silence. The banging stopped. Then, a voice, hoarse, as if it hadn't spoken in a long time. "Get out. This is my house. Your house. This is my family's property. Lie," the word spat out. "This land is mine. I lived here, before they built, before they stole. We didn't steal anything. My grandfather bought this land legally. They stole it." More banging, more violent. The table starting to slide. Caspian leaned against it. "Dagny, we need to get out. Through the window, now. And he'll see us. He'll chase us outside. Would you rather wait for him to come in? Because that door won't hold much longer." He was right. The hinges were already starting to loosen. The bathroom window upstairs. It's small, but we can fit. We ran upstairs, the sound of blows following us. Now it was coming from multiple places. Basement wall, basement door. As if there were more than one, or he was moving between places, fast, too fast. We reached the bathroom. Caspian opened the window, small but manageable. "You first," he said. "No, you're bigger. If you get stuck, that's exactly why you go first, so you can help pull me out if I need it." There was no time to argue. I climbed onto the sink. I pushed myself through the window, tight, the frame scraping my hips, but I got out. I fell onto the sloped roof of the back porch, sliding, grabbing the edge, hanging, then dropping to the ground. 10 feet, landing hard. Pain in my ankle, but I kept my balance. "Come on," I called up. Caspian's head appeared. Shoulders, squeezing. "It's narrower than—" Crash, from inside the cabin. Glass breaking, door splintering. "Come," I shouted. He pushed himself up, desperately, his shoulders barely fitting. Stuck halfway through his chest, and from inside the bathroom. Door slamming open, footsteps running. "Caspian, move." He twisted, pushing, his shirt tearing, skin scraping against the frame, but getting out. Just as hands, multiple hands, grabbed him from inside, by his legs, pulling. "No." He kicked, violently, connecting with something. Grunt of pain from inside. He pushed himself completely out, falling, landing next to me, both of us rolling. Getting up, face appeared in the window. The same bearded face, pressing, trying to follow, but too big, getting stuck, roaring in frustration. "Run!" Caspian grabbed my hand, pulling, toward the forest, away from the cabin. We ran, between trees, branches whipping, like whips, cutting face, arms tearing clothes. Behind us, sounds. Of doors opening, of footsteps, multiple, on dry leaves. "Don't stop," Caspian gasped. "Just keep going." Something grabbed him. I saw it happen, like in slow motion. Lasso, or rope, flying from the trees, coiling around his ankle, pulling. He fell, hard, screaming. "Dagny." I turned, reaching for him, but they were already dragging him away, into the undergrowth, toward figures. 2, 3, emerging from the shadows, in ragged clothes, dirty faces, eyes that glowed with something wild. One of them, the bearded one from the window, smiled, showing teeth, and raised something, a tool, a shovel or an axe. I couldn't see clearly, but it reflected light. "Caspian." I ran towards him. "No, run, just run, go." His voice cut off by a hand over his mouth, by being dragged deeper, into darkness, into silence except for laughter. Not from Caspian, from them, whatever they were, squatters. Survivalists, people who had claimed this forest, this land, as their own, and they saw intruders, us, as a threat, as a violation. I wanted to help him. I wanted to run towards them, fight. But there were 3 of them, and me, alone, unarmed, without a plan, and Caspian had said, "Run." So I ran, hating myself, but running, through the forest, without direction, just away, needing distance, space to think, to what? Help. Where? The lake. If I could reach the lake, follow the shore, eventually find another property, another cabin, people, help. I changed direction, toward where I thought the water was, based on sun, sound, instinct. And then I lost them. The sounds of pursuit ceased. Either I had gotten far enough away, or they had decided that one of us was enough, that Caspian was enough. That thought, that horror, almost stopped me. But I couldn't. If I stopped, if I didn't get help, we would both die. I reached the lake, the shore, slippery rocks and cold water. I started following it, to the left, away from my cabin, toward where I remembered another property, maybe a kilometer. My lungs burned, my ankles screamed, probably twisted in the fall, but I kept going. One leg, another, and then sound behind me in the distance, but unmistakable. Laughter, again, closer, approaching. They had followed me, not immediately, but giving me a head start, like a game, like a hunt. "No," I gasped. No. I moved faster, ignoring pain, ignoring exhaustion, and I saw, ahead, a structure, another cabin, bigger than mine, with lights, people. "Help," I shouted with all my strength. "Please, help." A door opening, figures coming out, 2 men, looking, seeing. I ran toward them, almost falling, but reaching the porch, collapsing on the steps. "There are people, in the woods. They attacked. We have to help." The men looked at each other, then toward the woods, toward where I was pointing, empty. The shadows had disappeared, if they had been there. "Slow down," one said. Older, gray hair. "What happened?" Between gasps, I told them. The cabin, the tracks, the attacks. Caspian being dragged away. "We need the police. A search. He's out there. Somewhere. We could still..." "I'll call." The other man, younger, went inside, for the phone. The older man sat down next to me. "Which cabin? Which one is yours?" "Merrick's. A mile south, with the green dock." His expression changed. "The old Merrick property. Have you been using it recently?" "It's mine. I inherited it. Why?" "Because there have been rumors about that area. People moving into empty properties, defending them. Sometimes violently. They knew and did nothing. It's not our land. And the sheriff. He's overworked. He can't patrol every mile of forest. So, people take matters into their own hands. They attacked my boyfriend. They may have killed him. I'm sorry, really, but this forest is not as safe as it used to be." The police arrived, eventually. It took 2 hours for the patrol to arrive from the nearest town, to take statements, to organize a search. They found my cabin, ransacked, smashed up, but empty. No attackers, no Caspian. They found signs of a struggle, blood, on the porch, in the woods, a trail, but it faded into a stream where the water washed everything away. The search continued for 3 days, with dogs, volunteers, helicopters, nothing. As if Caspian and his attackers had dissolved into the woods, into the earth. His truck was still there, next to my car, keys inside, beer in the back seat. A reminder of what should have been a perfect weekend. They asked me, Again and again, was I sure about everything, the footprints, the faces, the attackers, as if I could have made it up, as if Caspian had simply left. But the blood was real, and his belongings, and the terror in his eyes as they dragged him away. That was real. I know it was real, although sometimes, on bad nights, I wonder if I saw everything correctly, if in panic, in fear, my brain filled in details, created a narrative from fragments, because they never found bodies, they never found camps, they never found evidence that anyone lived in those woods, only footprints in the mud, which could have been anyone's, laughter in the distance, which could have been the wind, a face in the window, which could have been a reflection, a shadow, imagination, and Caspian, gone, without a trace, as if he had never existed, except for one thing, which they found 2 weeks later, when I came back, one last time, to collect my things, to close the cabin, to never return, on the porch, where we had found the branches, the dolls. There was something new, left there recently, because it hadn't been there when the police searched. A photo of us, Caspian and me, from Friday night, by the fire, kissing. A photo that neither he nor I had taken, because we were alone, just the two of us. Except, apparently, we weren't. Someone had been there, watching, documenting, waiting, and on the back of the photo, written in ink that had run in the rain, message: next time, bring more friends. The forest is hungry. I called the police again. They showed the photo, the message. They intensified the search for 2 more days. Nothing. The case remains open. Caspian Strand, missing, presumed. Whatever they presume when there's no body, no evidence, nothing except a traumatized woman with the story of a weekend that went horribly wrong. I sold the cabin, at a loss, to someone who didn't care about the story, who will probably tear it down, build something new. Fine, let them erase the place where I met someone special and lost them, in hours, to violence I couldn't understand. Stop, survive with, because I survived. That's my fault, my burden, that I ran, like he said, but what if I hadn't? What if I had fought? Would we both be dead, or both alive? I'll never know. I'll never know. All I know is that the forest near Lake Chelan hides something, someone, people, who claim land, who defend it, who make those who invade it disappear, and that sometimes, on quiet nights when it rains, I hear it from my new apartment in the city, where nothing from the forest can reach me. I hear laughter, distant, like that night, and I don't know if it's a memory, or a warning, or a promise, that if I return, if I ever return, the forest will remember, and it won't let me go, just as it didn't let Caspian go. Whoever wants it, let it be now. Alone in my cabin during a storm in the Adirondack Mountains of New York, the phone lost signal with a final pathetic beep, and the roar of the rain almost drowned out a second sound that froze my blood, that of an engine approaching in the thick fog like dirty wool. My name is Thessaly Voss, 37 years old, freelance writer of articles on sustainable and off-grid living. And on that night of March 15th, 2024, in the midst of the transition from late winter to early spring, I was completely alone in the cabin I had rented for a month to finish a manuscript on self-sufficiency in remote areas. The irony of what was about to happen did not escape me later. The cabin was exactly what I needed, my refuge. A one-room structure with an attic accessible by a steep staircase. A wood stove in the corner that kept the space tolerable against the bone-chilling cold even in March. Books stacked on every available surface. My laptop on the table by the window overlooking the dense forest of pine and fir trees. No neighbors for miles, no distractions. Just me, my work, and the silence occasionally interrupted by wildlife. I had been there for 2 weeks, establishing a routine, waking up at dawn, writing until noon, hiking in the afternoon, more writing, simple dinner, reading by the fire, deep sleep on the cot in the corner opposite the stove. It was a monastic existence, exactly what I was looking for after a chaotic year in Brooklyn, where every day was a bombardment of noise, people, demands. Here, in this cabin 2 hours from the nearest town, Lake Placid, I could finally think, breathe, create. The storm had arrived around 4 p.m. that Friday. The forecast had warned of a frontal system bringing heavy rain, strong winds, possible hail. Nothing unusual for March in the Adirondacks. I had secured the shutters, brought extra firewood from the shed, filled my water containers just in case, prepared. By 6 p.m., the storm was in full force. Rain pounded the cabin like angry fists. Wind howled through the trees, making them creak and groan in ways that sounded almost human. Lightning lit up the forest in stroboscopic flashes, followed seconds later by thunder that shook the walls. I had lit kerosene lamps. The electricity was solar-powered, and with the sky so dark, the batteries were on reserve. The stove crackled merrily, casting dancing orange light that made the shadows leap and writhe on the walls. I was sitting in my chair by the stove, blanket over my legs, reading Thoreau's Walden, appropriate for my situation, when my phone, resting on the table, beeped. Not a normal notification, but that specific beep that means complete signal loss. I picked it up. No bars, no service. I tried dialing anyway. Nothing. The storm must have knocked down the nearest cell tower, or maybe the interference was just too much. "It's okay," I said aloud. I had developed a habit of talking to myself in solitude. "You don't need a phone. You have everything you need here. The storm will pass. The signal will return." But something about being completely cut off from the world, no way to communicate, to call for help if necessary, triggered a primitive alarm in my brain. That ancestral voice that says vulnerable, exposed, alone. I tried to ignore it. I went back to my book, but the words swam by without registering. My attention kept drifting to the sounds, the rain, the wind, the thunder. And then, something else. An engine, distant, almost inaudible under the roar of the storm, but definitely there, a mechanical purr, getting closer. I froze, listening, hoping it was my imagination, a trick of the wind, but no, it was getting louder, clearer, a vehicle, driving down the dirt road that led to my cabin. Who on earth would be driving in this storm, at this hour, in this remote place? The owner of the cabin, a man named Evander, who lived in Lake Placid, had said when I rented it, "No one else uses that road. It leads only to your cabin. If anyone comes, it's because they're specifically looking for you." Those words, spoken casually then, now resonated with sinister implication. I got up, dropping my book and blanket. I moved toward the window, pushing the curtain aside slightly, looking outside. It was almost completely dark. The rain created a curtain that made it impossible to see more than 10 feet ahead. But then, lights. Headlights cutting through the fog, approaching on the road. Not a car, something smaller. An ATV, perhaps, or a quad bike. The vehicle stopped perhaps 50 meters from the cabin. Headlights pointing towards the trees. Engine idling. Why were they stopping there? Why not come all the way up? My breathing quickened. Heart pounding. Instinct screaming. Danger. I turned off the kerosene lamps, quickly, one by one, until only the stove provided light, and that was dimmer, less obvious from outside. I crouched by the window, peering through the curtains, trying to see figures. 2. Getting off the quad bike, dark shapes in the fog, wearing hoods or hats. Large, definitely men by their build, moving with purpose, towards the cabin. One was holding something long. A rifle, definitely a rifle. Oh God, no. Panic rose, real, visceral, These were not friendly visitors. They were not lost hikers seeking shelter. Men with guns approaching an isolated cabin in the middle of a storm where a woman alone was defenseless. I needed to. What? Hide? Run? Confront? The door. Was it locked? I ran to it, checked the latch. Locked. But it was old. Flimsy. It wouldn't stop anyone determined. Windows. 2. Both with simple latches, equally flimsy. The attic. I could climb into the attic. Hide. Hope they didn't look upstairs. That they would just... what? Come in, look around, and leave? But why were they here? What were they looking for? Then I heard it. A male voice, shouting over the roar of the rain. I know you're in there. I saw the lights before you turned them off. We just want to talk. My breath froze. They wanted to talk, sure. With a rifle, in the middle of a storm, at 7 p.m. We're from neighboring properties. Just checking to see if you're okay. Storm is bad. Lies. I knew they were lies. The tone, the way the second voice, younger, laughed. Not genuine concern, but something darker. Boots splashing in mud. Approaching the porch. Heavy footsteps on the wooden steps. I moved, quickly, toward the attic ladder, starting to climb, trying to be quiet, but every step creaked, protesting. I reached the attic just as they knocked on the door. Loud, demanding. Open up. We're not going to hurt you. We just want to get in out of the cold. The attic was low. Sloping ceiling forced me to crouch. Plank floor with gaps between them. I could see down into the cabin. Dusty. Smell of mold suffocating me. Stacked boxes. Old furniture covered with sheets. Enough space to hide, yes. If I didn't make any noise. I crawled to the far corner, behind a large trunk. Wood splinters digging into my knees, even through my jeans. Every movement creating a small sound. Every sound amplified by fear. More banging. Then, more violent shaking, testing the door, pushing. It's locked, the younger voice, with a pronounced rural accent. Should we break it down? Wait. The older voice, more calculating. Let's check the windows first, quieter. Footsteps moving around the cabin. Testing windows. 1, 2, both holding. Lock 2. Then yes. We break it down. What about the bitch inside, if she's there? Then we find her, and we make sure she cooperates. Laughter. Harsh. With an edge that wasn't humor, but anticipation of something. I didn't want to think what. Crash. The door splintering, the latch giving way. Not designed for this. For brute force. The door slammed open. Wind and rain pouring in. And the figures, coming in. Boots dripping mud on the wooden floor. From my position in the attic. Looking through cracks between boards. I could see them partially. The older one, 40s, with a gray beard and a hunting cap. Camouflage jacket. Rifle over his shoulder. Eyes scanning the cabin. The younger one, 20 maybe, thinner, wearing a hoodie, no visible weapon but a belt with a knife, smile showing stained teeth. She's hiding. Older one, statement not question. Or did she leave? Out the back window? No, the lights went out minutes ago. She saw us coming. She's here. They moved around the cabin, checking behind furniture, opening the small closet, looking under the cot. Hey, bitch, young one yelled. We know you're here. Come out. We'll make this easy. Easy for whom? The older man laughed. It's not going to be easy for her either way. Do you think she's pretty? The photo on her profile on the rental site was decent. My stomach sank. They had seen my profile. On the rental site, they had searched specifically. A female tenant. Alone. Vulnerable. They're all pretty enough in the dark. The older man moved toward the stove. Fire still hot. Was here minutes ago. The attic? The younger man looked up. Straight to where I was. Please no. Please don't go up there. Let's check. The older man started toward the stairs. I held my breath, making myself as small as possible behind the trunk. The dust made my nose itch, but I didn't dare sneeze or move, or breathe. His footsteps on the stairs, heavy, deliberate, climbing. His head emerged into the attic, flashlight in hand, sweeping, the beam cutting through the darkness. I pressed myself closer to the wall, praying that the shadows would hide me, that he wouldn't look too closely. The light passed over the trunk, over boxes, almost over me. Then it stopped. What do you see? Young man from below. A bunch of old junk. Furniture, boxes, lots of places to hide. Are you going to check? Pause. Long, while Mayor considered. Then, too much effort. If she's up here, she has nowhere to go. She can come down, or she can stay. Either way. We've got her. He descended, relieving weight from the steps. Then we wait. Mayor. She has to come out eventually. In the meantime, get comfortable. There's food. Beer, probably. Firewood. We can spend the night. And in the morning, we do what we came here to do, and we make sure she can't identify us afterwards. The meaning was clear. They were planning. God, they were planning to attack me. And then, kill me. To eliminate the witness. I needed to get out. I needed to escape. But how? They were downstairs, blocking the only way out of the attic, and outside, storm, darkness, forest where I could get lost, die of hypothermia, or be hunted like an animal. But staying meant the inevitable, what they were planning. So, escape was the only option, regardless of the odds. I heard them downstairs, making noise, breaking my furniture, using chairs as extra firewood, laughing about finding my wine supply, opening bottles, drinking. "Hey, bitch in the attic," the young man shouted. "Come down. We've got your wine we can share. Make this friendly." "Leave her alone," said the older one. "Let her feel safe up there. Let her think we're relaxed, drunk, careless. Then, when she comes down or when we go up, she won't be prepared." They were playing with me, psychologically, trying to make me feel safe or desperate. Minutes passed, half an hour, an hour. Their voices louder, more slurred, the alcohol working. And me, planning. There was a window in the attic, small, facing the back of the cabin, toward the forest. If I could open it, get out, climb down from the roof, run. I moved, inch by inch, towards the window, trying not to make any noise. But, plank, under my knee, old, rotten. It creaked, loudly, like a gunshot in the relative silence. Downstairs, the voices stopped, immediately. What was that? Upstairs, it's moving. Footsteps, running towards the stairs. There was no time. I needed to move. Now. I threw myself towards the window, grabbing the frame, pushing, stuck, painted shut, or swollen from moisture. I pushed harder, desperately. The frame splintering but moving, opening, behind me. Old man climbing into the attic. There you are. The window opened, cold air and rain hitting me. I pushed myself through, half my body out, legs still inside. Hands grab me, by the ankle, pulling, hard. I kicked, violently, my boot connecting with something. A face, perhaps. A groan of pain, the grip loosening. I pushed myself completely out, falling. Onto the sloping roof of the cabin, slippery from the rain, sliding, out of control, toward the edge. I fell, 10 feet, landing in mud. Pain exploding in my ankle, in my back, but moving, getting up. He went out the window, voice from inside. Go around back, I'm coming down. I ran, toward the woods, toward the darkness, toward anywhere that was far away. The rain was a solid curtain, blinding me. The mud sucked at my feet like hands trying to hold me back. Branches whipped my face, my body, tearing clothes, skin, behind me, lights, flashlights sweeping, voices shouting. This way, I saw her. She can't go far. The forest is dense. But I knew something. From the map Evander had left, there was a river, small, east of the cabin. If I could reach it, follow it, it would eventually lead to a road, to civilization, east. But which direction was east? In the darkness, in the storm, with no stars to guide me, no way to orient myself. I just kept running, praying I was choosing correctly, praying that the distance between us would grow. My lungs were burning, my ankles screamed with every step, but fear pushed me on, pure terror propelling me beyond the pain. And then, sound. Above the rain, boom, loud, rumbling thunder. Or another boom, definitely not thunder, gunshot, rifle. They were shooting, at me, or into the air, to scare me, to make me stop. I didn't stop. I ran harder. The terrain changed, descending, steeper, slippery. I lost my balance, falling, rolling, downhill, hitting rocks, roots, finally coming to a stop in water, the river. I'd found it, shallow here, maybe half a meter, flowing fast, cold, so cold it cut like knives. I got up, numb, completely soaked now, shivering violently, but alive, and in the river. Which direction? Upstream, downstream, downstream, always downstream. Rivers flow downstream, toward valleys, toward where people live. I started walking, in the water, letting the current help me, hoping that if they followed me, the water would wash away my tracks. Like in the movies. The cold was agony, every step, every second. My body begging to get out, to warm up, but I couldn't. Not yet. Behind me, the lights, still searching, but more distant now, moving in the wrong direction perhaps. I continued, one foot in front of the other, time losing its meaning. Only cold existed, darkness, movement. I don't know how long I walked. Half an hour, more, until light. Ahead, not a flashlight, but steady light from a structure, a cabin, another cabin, with lights on, smoke from the chimney, people. I got out of the river, stumbling, falling, getting up, toward the light. I reached the door. I knocked, with fists I could barely feel. Help, please, help. Door opening. Woman, older, looking at me with alarm. My God, what? Men, with guns. They chased me, from the cabin. I need police, please. She pulled me inside, yelling to someone else. Quillen, bring blankets, call the sheriff. She wrapped me, in a blanket, by the fire, heat hurting as my body began to thaw. Her husband, Quillen, was already on the phone, giving directions, describing the situation. They're coming, she said, 20 minutes, maybe less. The next few minutes were a blur. Them, Nephile and Quillen, asking questions. Me answering between shivers, telling them about the men, the attack, the escape. Your cabin, Nephile. Is it Evander's? The rented one? Yes. We've heard rumors about men hanging around rented properties looking for women alone. There have been incidents, but no one reports them, out of fear or shame. Incidents, assaults, worse, bodies, found in the woods, years later, never solved. The horror was complete. It hadn't been random. It hadn't been the first. It had been hunting, systematic practice. The police arrived, took statements, organized a search for the men, recovered evidence from my cabin. They found the abandoned quad bike, footprints, DNA from beer bottles, but the men disappeared in the woods, knowing the terrain better than anyone, knowing where to hide. The search continued for days, weeks. Eventually, they arrested 2 men, locals, with criminal records, brothers, Caspian and Oberon Strand, from a family known in the area for being troublesome, violent. My testimony, more DNA evidence, more testimony from other women who finally spoke up. It was enough. Trial, conviction, both sentenced to 30 years. But that night in the woods, in the rain, being hunted like an animal, it will never leave me. The sound of the engine in the fog, the voices, the gunshots, the cold of the river, the terror of knowing they could have killed me, that they almost did. That only luck and desperation saved me. I never went back to the cabin. Evander retrieved my things. He sent them to me. He apologized profusely, as if it were his fault. It wasn't. But he hadn't warned me either, about the real dangers, about the men who hunted in these mountains. Not deer, but something more vulnerable. Now I write from an apartment in the city, where neighbors are just a few feet away, where sirens and noise mean life, people, help available, where I am never, ever truly alone, because I learned that night that solitude has a price, that isolation is a dangerous luxury, that sometimes the engine in the fog brings not help but horror, and that running toward the cold river, toward the dark night, toward the unknown, is sometimes the only option between that and something much worse. I inherited a cabin from my uncle Oberon, who committed suicide in February 2024. But when I dug a hole for the trash 3 weeks later, my shovel hit something soft wrapped in black plastic. Something that wasn't trash. Something that had been human. My name is Isolde Crane, 28 years old, elementary school teacher in Portland, Oregon. And when attorney Evander Moss called me on February 28th to tell me that my uncle, whom I had barely spoken to in a decade, had left me his property in the southern Cascade Mountains, my first reaction was confusion. My second, after he mentioned suicide, was suspicion, because Oberon wasn't the kind of man who would give up. He was stubborn, obstinate, the kind of guy who fought against everything, including himself. Suicide? I asked. Are you sure? That's what the police report says, Evander replied cautiously. He hung himself in the garage. They found him 3 weeks later when a neighbor noticed the smell. The smell. God. The image was horrible. And he left everything to me. Didn't he have any closer family? You were his only niece. His brothers, his parents, passed away years ago. He had no wife or children. The property is yours if you want it. If not, we can sell it and... No, I want it. The words came out before I thought, but they made sense. Rent in Portland was unbearable. My teacher's salary barely covered the basics. A mortgage-free property, even a remote one, was a godsend. When can I take possession? We need you to sign some papers. You can come to my office in Medford, say this Friday. The paperwork was a formality. Signatures. More signatures. Death certificates. Title deeds. All very official, very final. Evander handed me the keys. 2 sets, rusty and heavy, and handwritten directions. GPS doesn't work well up there. Follow these instructions exactly. When was the last time anyone was on the property? Since they found the body in February. The police checked it out. They ruled it a suicide. They cleaned up the place where it happened. But the rest of the cabin is just as he left it. Family. Anyone else who might claim it? His uncle was very clear in his will. Everything goes to you, but... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Family can be complicated. If anyone shows up asking questions, refer them to me. Something in his tone made me uncomfortable. Are you expecting someone to show up? Just saying. Inheritances bring out all kinds of people, especially distant family who suddenly remember blood ties. I drove to the cabin on Saturday, March 16th, 3 hours from Portland, following roads that grew narrower and more remote. The landscape was beautiful, in that raw way that the mountains of southern Oregon are. Ponderosa pines, granite cliffs, sky so blue it hurt to look at it. The directions took me down a gravel road that wound its way up the mountain. Finally, after the last 2 kilometers of road that was little more than a trail, the cabin appeared. It wasn't small as I had expected. 2 stories with a separate garage where it had happened, where Oberon had hanged himself. The main structure was wood, darkened by weather and time, with a wide porch, windows reflecting the afternoon sun, and views. God. The views of the valley were spectacular. They promised peace, solitude, exactly what I needed after years in a noisy city. I parked my Honda Civic next to the garage, avoiding looking at it too directly. I knew what had happened there. I didn't need to visualize it anymore. The front door opened with resistance. The old lock, the humid weather causing the wood to swell. The interior smelled musty, dusty, of time, but not of death. At least the police had cleaned up well. The main room was cozy in a rustic way. Stone fireplace, worn sofa, bookshelves full of books on nature, hunting, survival. A small but functional kitchen to one side. Stairs leading up to what I assumed were bedrooms. I spent the afternoon exploring. 2 bedrooms upstairs, both with maid and clean beds. A bathroom with a working shower, although the water came out brown for the first few seconds. The attic, accessible by a pull-down ladder, was full of boxes, Oberon's documents, family photos, things I would need to go through, but not today. I avoided the garage. Knowing what had happened there made it impossible to just casually walk in. Eventually, I would have to do it, clean it out, turn it into usable space, but not today. By nightfall, I had decided. I would stay. I would fix up the cabin, turn it into a home, maybe even live here permanently, commuting to Portland for work, or finding work locally. It was possible. It was the future. I spent the night in one of the bedrooms, sleeping surprisingly well considering it was my first night in the property where my uncle had died violently. Sunday dawned clear and warm for March. I decided to start with the outside. The yard was neglected. Overgrown grass, weeds, accumulated trash that the wind had blown in. It needed serious cleaning. I found tools in the shed next to the garage: shovel, rake, trash bags. I started with the obvious, picking up cans, papers, fallen branches. Around noon, I decided I needed a hole to compost organic trash, or maybe a pit to burn it, something. The nearest dump was an hour away. I couldn't be making that trip constantly. I chose a spot behind the garage, out of the way, not visible from the cottage, perfect for trash. I started digging. The sun was strong. I was sweating through my t-shirt. But the work was satisfying. Physical, tangible. Very different from teaching second graders. The soil was loose, too easy to dig, as if someone had already dug here, recently. The shovel sank deep, hitting something, not rock. Something else, soft, resistant but yielding. I dug around it, exposing it. Black plastic, a large trash bag, tied at the top with string. How strange, I muttered. Did Oberon bury trash? But something about the shape, the size, made my stomach twist. It was the right size, to be a body. Don't be ridiculous, I told myself. It's just trash. Maybe a dead animal, a deer he found, something. I needed to check, to know what it was. If it was an animal, I could remove it, rebury it deeper, or call wildlife control. I used the shovel to cut the rope, open the bag. The stench hit me like a physical punch. Rotten flesh, decomposition, sweet and metallic and absolutely unmistakable. Vomit rose. I couldn't stop it. I turned, emptying my stomach onto the grass. Once, twice, until there was nothing left but bitter bile. When I could breathe again, I forced myself to look inside the bag. Arm, human, definitely human, with pale grayish skin, dark spots of decay, and the nails, painted, red, faded and chipped but clearly red. Woman. There was a dead woman buried on my uncle's property. Horror paralyzed me, completely. My brain screaming multiple thoughts simultaneously. Oberon buried a body. Oberon killed someone. Oberon didn't commit suicide. He was murdered or committed suicide out of guilt. I need to call the police. I need to get out of here. Who was she? When? Why? I got up, staggering, moving away from the hole, toward the cabin. I needed a phone. I needed help. I ran inside, washing my hands frantically in the sink. The smell still in my nose, in my throat, permanent. My phone. Where was it? In the bedroom. Upstairs. I grabbed it. My hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. No signal. Of course. I was in remote mountains. Cell service was inconsistent at best, Landline phone. I looked. I hadn't seen one. Oberon must have used only cell phones. I needed to drive, find a signal, or go straight to the police in Medford. I grabbed my keys, my bag, running to the door, and then I heard it. Cars, plural, coming down the road, engines roaring, more than one. I froze. Whoever it was, they hadn't called. They hadn't warned me. They were just coming. I moved toward the window, looking. 2 trucks, Ford and Chevy, kicking up dust as they approached. They stopped in front of the cabin, doors opening, 4 people getting out. I recognized them. Vaguely. From old family photos I had seen in Mom's boxes before she died. Cousins, uncles. Oberon's family. I had never met personally, but who existed on the periphery of family history. The oldest, a man in his 50s, with a beer belly and a baseball cap, was Caspian, Oberon's older brother, who, according to my mother, had been in prison for something violent in the 90s. The woman, thin, in her 40s, with dyed blonde hair, was Saffron. Caspian's wife, or ex-wife. I couldn't remember. The 2 youngest, in their 30s, were Quillen and Dagny, children of another deceased brother. Oberon's cousins, all of them looking toward the cabin, toward my car, knowing I was here. Caspian spoke first, his voice loud enough to be heard through the closed window. Isolde, we know you're there. We saw your car. We just want to talk. I didn't want to talk. I wanted them to leave so I could get out, drive to the police, report him. The body. God, the body. But ignoring them seemed worse. I opened the door, just slightly, standing in the doorway. Hello? How did you know I was here? The lawyer. Saffron, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. He mentioned you had inherited. We thought it would be nice to visit you, welcome you to the family. Lies. I could see it in their expressions, the way they exchanged glances. They had come for another reason. That's nice, but I'm busy, cleaning, tidying up. Maybe another day. It won't take long. Caspian started toward the porch, the others following. We just want to see the place, for old time's sake. We spent many summers here when we were kids. I didn't invite them in, but they came in anyway, pushing past me, looking around with scanning eyes, searching, assessing. It hasn't changed much, Quillen said. Touching things, photos, books. Old Oberon was never one for updates. I guess not. I kept my voice neutral. Did you come just to see the cabin? Well, Saffron sat down on the sofa without being invited. We also wanted to talk about the inheritance. You see, Oberon had debts, to family, to us specifically, money he lent, favors he did. And we thought, well, it would be fair for the inheritance to be divided among the family, not just go to you. There it was, the real reason. They wanted money, property, part of what Oberon had left me. The will is clear, I said. It's all mine. If you have a problem with that, talk to the lawyer. The will, Caspian laughed. A humorless sound. It's a piece of paper. Oberon was crazy at the end. Anyone could see that. He probably wasn't even of sound mind when he wrote it. If you believe that, contest it legally. Until then, this is my property, and I need you to leave. Or what? Dagny spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but sharp. Will you call the police? There's no signal here. Oberon never installed a landline. You're alone. With us. On property that, she paused deliberately, might have secrets you wouldn't want the police to discover. My blood ran cold. Secrets? Did they know about the body? Had they known all along? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You don't. Caspian moved closer. Too close, invading personal space. Then you haven't been digging around, in the garden, behind the garage maybe. They knew. God, they knew. They had known before they came. You found something, Saffron said. It wasn't a question. We can see it in your face, and you're probably thinking, what did my uncle do? Who is that woman? Should I call the police? You should tell us, Quillen added. Before you do something stupid, that woman. She deserved it completely. What? My voice barely worked. Who? Her name was Nephele, Dagny said. She was Oberon's girlfriend. 5 years ago. Very young, very pretty, and very greedy. She thought Oberon had money, that she could manipulate him, marry him, inherit everything when he died. But Oberon found out, Caspian continued, that she had been stealing from his account, thousands of dollars, and worse. She was planning to kill him, make it look like an accident, collect life insurance. So Oberon, Saffron paused. He defended himself. He confronted her. She attacked first, with a knife, and he killed her. It was self-defense. But no evidence, no witnesses. Who would believe him? So he buried her, Quillen finished, and lived with that guilt until finally, he couldn't take it anymore, and he hung himself. The story sounded convenient, too neat. But was it true? Or were they protecting Oberon? Or worse, had they been involved? If it was self-defense, I said carefully, why didn't he report it? Are you kidding? Caspian laughed. Lonely man, dead young woman. Who would believe him? Especially with, he gestured vaguely, his past. What past? Oberon was charged once, decades ago, with assault, against another woman. The charges were dropped, but the record existed. So, Saffron stood up. Here's the situation. You have two options. Option 1. You go to the police. You report the body. And then the whole family, including us, testifies that Oberon was violent, unstable, a killer, and by association, you, inheriting property where he committed murder. You'll come under suspicion, investigation, legal nightmare that will take years and all your fortune. Or, Caspian continued, option 2, you sell the property. To us. For a reasonable price, let's say. 50,000. We divide it among the family. You take the money, you leave. And no one mentions the body, ever. We leave it where it is. No one will know. You're crazy, I whispered. You want me to cover up murder, sell stolen property, and keep quiet. It's not a cover-up if it was self-defense, Dagny said. And it's not theft. It's compensation for years of Oberon being selfish. Keeping everything for himself when the family needed help. No. I moved toward the door. Everyone get out. Now. I'm going to the police. They'll investigate properly, and they'll find out the truth. The truth. Caspian blocked my way. Or your version, because here's another truth. We found something else, while you were inside processing your discovery. Quillen pulled something out of his jacket. A diary. Small. With worn leather. It was in the garage. Hidden. Oberon's diary, and it has entries. Interesting ones. He opened to a marked page. He read aloud. January 15th, 2024. Isolde called today. First time in years. Asking about money. Always about money. Like her mother, like everyone. They only want what I can give them. Never who I am. That's not... I never called him asking for money. No? Quillen turned more pages. February 3rd, 2024. Isolde insists. Says she needs 20,000 for emergency. Knew it would come to this eventually. They all do. No one really cares. They just wait for me to die and leave them everything. That's a lie. I never said that. I didn't even know that. Does it matter? Saffron smiled. If the police find this diary, along with the body, and your recent inheritance, the narrative is clear. You pressured Oberon. Maybe you even visited him. You demanded money. He refused. There was an altercation. Then you discovered the body, or worse, you discovered he had killed before. You used it to blackmail him, and when he resisted, you murdered him. You made it look like suicide. The horror was complete. They were framing me, creating a narrative where I was the villain, the murderer, and they had evidence, false but convincing. No one will believe you, I said, but my voice was shaking. Because they might, in the absence of other evidence, with a diary showing motive, with a body on the property, with a recent inheritance. I was the perfect suspect. So, Caspian said, what will it be? Sell, or we face the consequences together. I needed time. I needed to think, but more importantly, I needed to get out. Let me think. This is a lot to process. You have until tomorrow, Saffron said. We'll be back with the sale papers. You sign them, they transfer the money, and we all move on. They started toward the door, finally. But before leaving, Caspian turned around. By the way, your car needs work. Quillen noticed the gas tank has a leak. You won't get far with it. Sabotage. They had sabotaged my car while I was inside, making sure I couldn't easily escape. They left, getting into their trucks, driving away down the road, leaving me alone, trapped. I ran to my car. I checked the tank. They were right. Gasoline was slowly dripping out. A puddle was forming under the vehicle. I wouldn't even make it to the end of the road. Panic rose in my throat. I was trapped. No way out. No phone. No transportation. And they would be back. With their plan. Their blackmail. Their threat. I needed evidence. Something to prove they were lying. That the diary was fake. The diary. Quillen still had it. But maybe there was more. In the boxes in the attic. In Oberon's papers. I ran inside. Up the stairs. Unfolding the attic ladder. Climbing up. The boxes were chaos. Papers, photos, receipts. Years of Oberon's life accumulated without organization. I searched frantically. Looking. For what? Evidence of Nephile. Of their relationship. Of her death. Something. I found photos. Of Oberon with a young woman. Pretty. With dark hair. Was it Nephile? It had to be. Dated 2019, 5 years ago, like they said, but the expressions. Oberon looked. Happy. Genuinely happy. Not manipulated, not a victim. And her. Also happy, not calculating, not a villain. More photos. Together. On vacation. At the cabin. In restaurants. A normal relationship. Loving. Then, different photos. Nephile with another person. A man who was not Oberon. Young. Attractive. Cheating. Was that the reason? And behind the photos, letters from Oberon, never sent. Addressed to Nephile. Dated after his presumed death. Dear Nephile, if I could take it all back, I would change that day. Your last day. When he came. When Caspian insisted. When you said no and he didn't listen to you. I couldn't stop him. Even though I tried, he was stronger. And when it was over, he made me help. Hide it. Bury it. He said it was my fault. For bringing a woman he didn't approve of. For defending you when he thought you were using me. And he threatened, if I reported it, he would kill the rest of my family. Isolde, my sister's daughter. The only one who was still innocent. So I kept quiet and lived with your ghost. Until I couldn't anymore. The horror was different now. Not Oberon. Caspian. Caspian had killed Nephile, and Oberon had covered it up. Out of fear, to protect me. And now, Caspian was coming to the estate, to hide the evidence permanently, to make sure the secret remained buried. Literally. I needed to get out. Now, not tomorrow. Now. Because if Caspian suspected that I knew, that I had found these letters, he wouldn't wait. He would come tonight, and he wouldn't leave any witnesses. I went down from the attic, with the letters, with the photos, evidence. I needed to get to the police, to show them, to prove it. But how? My car was useless. No phone. Miles of forest in every direction. Walk. I would have to walk. Along the road. Until I reached the main highway. Then hitchhike. Or keep walking until I reached civilization. I packed a small bag. Water. Some food. The letters and photos in a sealed bag. My ID. Money. I left, closing the door, looking down the road. Still light. No trucks coming back. Yet. I started walking. Fast. Down the gravel road. away from the cabin, from the property, from the horror buried in the garden. The sun was going down, maybe an hour before sunset. I needed to move fast. Get to safety before it got completely dark. I'd walked maybe a kilometer when I heard it. An engine, behind me, getting closer. I turned around. A truck, Caspian's Ford, driving fast. Too fast for the narrow road. There was nowhere to hide. The road was flanked by dense trees on both sides. I could run into the woods, but he would catch up with me before I got far. The truck slowed down, stopping beside me. Window rolling down. Caspian looking at me. An expression that was not friendly. It was predatory. "Where are you going, Isolde?" "Walking. Alone. Needed some fresh air." "With a bag. With documents. Don't take me for a fool." "I don't know what." "You found something else. In the attic. Oberon's letters. Right?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My expression said it all. "That idiot," Caspian muttered. I told him to burn them. But he was sentimental, weak, as always. "You killed him," I said. "He didn't kill himself. You killed him because you were afraid he would talk." Finally, he smiled. "It wasn't suicide. I hung him myself. I made it look real, and it worked, until you showed up. Inheriting, snooping, literally digging up places that should have remained buried. The police will find out. When I show them the letters, you won't get to the police." He opened the door, getting out, with something in his hand, a gun, small but lethal. Terror froze me, just for a second. Then, instinct took over. I ran, into the woods between trees, branches whipping, tripping over roots, but moving. I needed distance, cover. Behind me, Caspian shouting, "You can't hide. I know these woods. I grew up here." Gunshot, the crack tearing through the air. Something hitting the tree next to me, bark exploding. I kept running, deeper, the forest thickening, the light dwindling as trees blocked the setting sun. I needed a plan. I couldn't just run. Eventually I would tire, or get completely lost, or he would catch up to me. The river. I remembered from the map. There was a river, small, to the east, if I could find it, follow it. It would lead to a valley, to a road, to people. I changed direction, toward where I thought east was, based on the position of the sun, on instinct. I could hear Caspian behind me, more distant now, but still searching, still calling. "Isolde, this doesn't have to end badly. Just give me the letters. We can make a deal." I didn't believe him. He knew too much. He had seen too much. He was a witness, a threat, and Caspian had already killed 2 people. A third wouldn't matter. The terrain became steeper, descending, a good sign. The river would be in the valley. And then, I heard it. Water. Running. Ahead. I pushed through the final undergrowth, emerging at the riverbank, small. Perhaps 10 feet wide. Shallow. Perfect. I entered. The water was freezing. It made me gasp. But it was necessary. It would cover my tracks. It would make it harder to follow me. I walked in the water, downstream, following the current, as fast as I could without slipping on the rocks. The light was fading. Twilight was falling. In half an hour, it would be completely dark. And without a flashlight, no way to see. I would be lost, vulnerable. But I kept going, because stopping meant being found, and being found meant death. I don't know how long I walked. Half an hour, the cold numbing my feet, my legs. My brain slowing down with incipient hypothermia. And then, light, ahead. Not natural light, but artificial. Floodlights, from a structure, a house, a cabin, something. I got out of the river, staggering, toward the light, toward hope. It was a ranger station, small, with an American flag, with a Forest Service truck parked outside. I knocked on the door, with fists I could barely feel. "Help, please, someone is chasing me." Door opening. Ranger, woman, 30s, looking at me. "What?" Man with a gun. He chased me from the cabin. I inherited the property. I found a body. Family lied. They tried to kill me. Please call the police." She pulled me inside. "It's okay. It's okay. You're safe. Sit down. I'll get you a blanket." She wrapped me up. She radioed in, reporting, requesting units. "They'll be here in 30 minutes, she said. "You're far from everything, but they're coming. Can you tell me what happened?" "Between tremors," I told her. "Everything. The inheritance, the body, the family, the threats, the letters, Caspian chasing me." She listened, taking notes, her expression growing more serious. "I know Oberon Crane's property," she said. "There have been rumors about family, criminal activity, but never anything proven. Now they have proof. The body, the letters, they're in my bag." "Do you have it?" I checked. Still there, soaked. But the photos and letters in the sealed bag were dry, intact. "This is important evidence. The police will want to see it." Sirens eventually, distant but getting closer. Several vehicles, the cavalry arriving. I spent the next few hours giving statements. To state police, to the sheriff, to a detective. Telling the story over and over, showing the letters, the photos, explaining everything. They sent units to the cabin. They found my car sabotaged, the body still in the hole, and Caspian trying to dig to remove evidence. They arrested him, along with Quillen, Saffron, and Dagny, all charged conspiracy, obstruction. Caspian charged with murder of Nephile and Oberon. The trial would take months, years, perhaps, but the prosecution was confident. The letters, my testimony, forensic evidence from the body. It was a solid case, and I inherited the property, legally, without dispute, but I couldn't stay. Not after everything. After the buried horror, the persecution, of the knowledge of what had happened there. I sold, at a fair price, to a buyer who knew the whole story and planned to demolish, rebuild, erase. I took the money. I moved to a new city, new state, new beginning where no one knew about the cursed inheritance, about the murderous family, about the night I ran for my life through the dark forest with a gun firing behind me. But the nightmares remain, of an arm in a plastic bag, of faded red nails, of Caspian's voice calling my name, of gunshots cracking through the trees, of icy water numbing me until I could barely feel, of pure terror knowing that family, my own flesh and blood, wanted to kill me to protect secrets that should never have existed. I shared a hunting cabin with my old friend Evander for a week in the woods of Montana. But on the third day, I woke up at 3 a.m. to find his hunting knife stuck in my sleeping bag, inches from where my head had been, with a note tied to the handle that read, in red ink, "Don't trust me. My name is Quillen Ashford, 35 years old, accountant in Billings, Montana." And that November 2023, after Evander Strand called me insisting that we needed to reconnect after 5 years of not seeing each other, after he promised a week of hunting, whiskey, and brotherhood like old times, I agreed. Because Evander had been my best friend since college. We had shared an apartment, terrible jobs, girlfriends who left us, and that connection that only exists between men who have been through shit together and survived. "Quillen, brother," he had said on the phone, his voice with that enthusiasm he always had. "I booked a cabin in Flathead National Forest, first week of November, deer season. Like when we were 22 and didn't know what the hell we were doing." I laughed. "I still don't know what the hell I'm doing." "Perfect. Then nothing has changed. Bring your rifle, your whiskey tolerance, and get ready to freeze your ass off because there's no decent heating." It sounded good. I needed an escape. My job was endless monotony of spreadsheets and unbearable clients. My girlfriend, Saffron, had just broken up with me, saying I was emotionally absent and obsessed with work. And my social life was non-existent outside of eating dinner alone in front of Netflix. A week in the woods with my best friend, hunting, drinking, being men in a primitive and stupid way. Exactly what I needed. We arrived at the cabin on Saturday, November 4th, driving down roads that became increasingly remote until we finally reached a wooden structure in a clearing surrounded by lodgepole pines and fir trees. The cabin was exactly as Evander had described: rustic, small, with a fireplace that would be our main source of heat. 2 cots, a basic kitchen, and silence so deep you could hear your own blood pumping. Perfect. Evander jumped out of his truck, rifle slung over his shoulder, with a smile that showed all his teeth. He looked good, better than the last time I saw him, thinner, more defined, as if he had been working out. This is the life, brother. No phones, no internet, no bosses breathing down your neck. Hallelujah to that, I said, climbing down with my own rifle and backpack. The air was icy, crisp, with that smell of pine and earth that made your lungs burn in a good way. We spent the afternoon settling in, unpacking supplies, beer, whiskey, meat, canned goods, enough to survive a minor apocalypse. Chopping wood, lighting a fire that crackled and roared, filling the cabin with warmth and dancing orange light. By 6 p.m., we were sitting in chairs in front of the fireplace, with Maker's Mark whiskey in heavy glasses, talking about nothing and everything: jobs, ex-girlfriends, family, the years that had passed, how Evander had changed careers 3 times and now worked in construction, how I'd gotten stuck in accounting even though I hated it, how we had both aged faster than expected. "Do you remember Dagny?" Evander asked, naming an ex-girlfriend from college. "The one who left you for that musician." "How could I forget? She tore me apart for 6 months. I loved her, you know," he said casually, too casually, "before you met her. We dated briefly. I never told you because, well, you liked her, and I didn't want to be that guy." Something in his tone made me alert. "I didn't know that. There's a lot you don't know." He drank his whiskey. "About me, about us, about life." "Deep," I joked. But something felt off, dull, like when a radio frequency is slightly out of tune. That night we had steak for dinner, which Evander cooked in a cast-iron skillet over the fireplace. Perfectly seared, juicy, delicious. We drank more whiskey. We played poker with old cards we found in a drawer. I won most of the hands. Evander lost gracefully, but I could see it. Something in his eyes, measuring, calculating, as if each lost hand was another mark in his mental record. Around midnight, we went to sleep. The cots were on opposite sides of the cabin, mine by the window, his near the door. We said goodnight. We turned off the lamps. The fire reduced to embers that cast just enough light to see silhouettes. I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the trip, from whiskey, from the first genuinely relaxing day I'd had in months. And then, something woke me up. Not a specific sound, but that primitive feeling of my brain saying, "Danger." I opened my eyes. The cabin was dark except for the dying embers. My watch, 3:17 a.m. Something was wrong. I could feel it, in the air, in the silence that was too deep. I moved, slightly, just to adjust my position, and I felt it. Something, near my head, too close. I turned, slowly, and there, stuck in my sleeping bag, maybe 4 inches from where my head had been minutes ago, knife, Evander's hunting knife. I recognized the handle, carved deer antler with his initials ES engraved on it, the blade, buried deep in the sleeping bag material, and the cot underneath, and tied to the handle. Paper, folded, with something written on it. My heart exploded, pounding so hard that I thought Evander, wherever he was, could hear it. With trembling hands, I reached for the paper, untied it, unfolded it. Sloppy handwriting, in ink that showed, red, too red. Blood or marker? I couldn't tell in the dim light. "Don't trust me." 4 words, simple, terrifying. I looked over at Evander's cot, empty, sleeping bag open. He wasn't there. Where was he? Outside, in the bathroom, watching me. I stood perfectly still, listening, waiting to hear. Something. Footsteps, breathing, movement, nothing. Just silence. And a gentle wind causing the cabin to creak occasionally. My brain was racing, processing. What did this mean? Warning. Threat. Twisted joke. Evander had been a prankster in college, always pushing boundaries. But this was too much. Stabbing me with a knife while I slept, leaving a note that said, that. Should I confront him? Pack up? Leave? But it was the middle of the night outside, in a remote forest. No cell phone signal. My truck needed half an hour just to get to the main road. And yes, if this was serious, if Evander was really a threat, running away could provoke a reaction. I decided to pretend I hadn't woken up, that I hadn't seen, to wait until morning, to assess in daylight, carefully, very carefully. I took the knife out of my jacket. From the cot, without making a sound, I put it under my pillow. I folded the note. I put it in my pocket. I lay down, closing my eyes, controlling my breathing, pretending to sleep, and I waited, with every sense on high alert, with adrenaline rushing, making every nerve sing. Minutes passed, 10, 20, 30. Then, a sound, the cabin door opening, softly, carefully, someone entering. Through my almost closed eyelids, I saw Evander returning, wearing a jacket, as if he had been outside, for a while, doing what? He moved toward his cot, silently, almost comical in his stealth. He took off his jacket, boots, he got into his sleeping bag, and then I heard his breathing, irregular, not like someone getting ready to sleep, but like someone awake, alert, waiting for what? For me to get up, to scream, to run away? I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. I lay still, breathing deeply and evenly, acting perfectly asleep. Eventually, his breathing regulated. Maybe he really was sleeping. Or maybe he was acting too. I didn't sleep anymore that night. I just lay there, with a knife under my pillow, with a note in my pocket, with fear growing like a tumor in my chest. When the light of dawn finally filtered through the windows around 6:30 a.m., I got up, acting normal, stretching, yawning, as if nothing had happened. Evander was already awake, standing by the stove, making coffee, with a smile that was too wide, too bright. "Good morning, brother. Did you sleep well?" "Like a log," I lied. "And you?" "Perfect. The mountain air gives me the best sleep I've had in years." Normal conversation, casual, as if the knife had never existed, as if the note had never been written. Was he waiting for me to mention it? Or had it really been, what? Sleepwalking. A psychotic episode I didn't remember. We had breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, pan-fried toast. Everything normal. Everything cordial. But I could feel it. Tension. In the way he looked at me. In the slightly too long pause before he answered. In the way his eyes followed my every move. "So," he said after breakfast, "ready to hunt? I saw deer tracks yesterday. Good ones. Big ones. We could track them." "Sure." What else could I say? Refusing would raise suspicion. It would reveal that I knew, that I was afraid. We got ready. Putting on bright orange hunting clothes. Loading rifles. Mine was a Remington 730-06 caliber. His was similar. Both capable of, well, a lot of damage at a lot of distance. We headed into the woods, with Evander leading, me following, at a distance, more distance than normal, always keeping him in sight ahead of me, never letting him get behind me. He noticed. "Why are you walking so far behind? Tired?" "Just enjoying the scenery. It's beautiful here." Yes, beautiful and isolated, no one around for miles, just us and wildlife. The way he said it, with emphasis on just us, it sent a chill down my spine. We walked for hours, following tracks that Evander insisted he saw, even though I could barely make them out. My attention wasn't on the hunt. It was on him, on his hands, on his rifle, on his every move. Around noon, we stopped, in a small clearing, to eat lunch, sandwiches we had packed, water from canteens. We sat on a fallen tree stump, rifles resting nearby, eating in silence that grew more uncomfortable with every minute. Then Evander spoke. "Did you find anything last night?" I froze, sandwich halfway to my mouth. "What?" I said. "Did you find anything last night in your cot?" So he knew. He had been waiting for me to mention it. And now he was forcing me. Should I have found something? I kept my voice neutral. Maybe. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Depends on how deep a sleeper you are. I sleep pretty deeply. Interesting. Because, well, I did a little test to see if you'd notice. A test of what? Trust. He turned toward me, fully now. Do you trust me, Quillen? You're my best friend. Of course. That's a lie. His voice became flat, cold. You don't trust me. You haven't trusted me for years. Ever since the incident. My stomach sank. What incident? You know exactly which one. 2018, the loan. The $20,000 you said you'd lend me for my business, to keep me from losing everything. I remembered. Vaguely. Evander had had a business idea. Something about an app. He had asked for money. I had said. What had I said? I told you I didn't have $20,000. I was barely surviving myself. You lied. I saw your account. Accidentally. That day I used your laptop. You had $50,000 in savings, and you told me you had nothing. Oh God, I'd forgotten, or suppressed, that awkward conversation where Evander had asked, and I had made up an excuse because I didn't trust he would pay me back, because his track record with money was terrible, because Evander, that was 5 years ago. I thought we had moved on. He laughed. Without humor. No, I didn't move on. I lost everything. My business collapsed. My girlfriend left me. I lost my apartment. I lived in my truck for 6 months, while you carried on with your comfortable life, your stable job, your pretty girlfriend, all because you didn't help me when I needed it. I didn't know it was that bad. Because you didn't ask. You didn't care. His voice rose, real anger now. You said you were my brother. But brothers don't let brothers drown. I'm sorry. Really. If I had known, would you have helped? Really? Or would you have found another excuse? I didn't answer, because honestly I didn't know. I probably would have found an excuse, because giving $20,000 was a lot, especially to someone with Evander's history. That's why, he continued, I needed you to understand how it feels. Not being able to trust. Not knowing if the person you love, who you call brother, will really be there, or if he'll stab you in the back while you sleep. The note, the knife, was that a lesson? Yes and no. His hand moved toward his rifle, because I also came to the conclusion that you owe me $20,000 plus interest. 5 years of interest at, say, 10%. That's $32,000. Let's round it up to 35 to cover emotional trauma. Emotional trauma? Are you kidding? I'm not kidding. I've never been more serious. He raised the rifle, aiming it, casually but definitely, at me. You'll pay, one way or another. The terror that had been simmering all morning now erupted into full-blown panic. Evander, put the rifle down. Let's talk. We've talked. For 5 years we haven't talked. Now, it's time for action. You have two options. Option 1, you transfer $35,000 to me when we get back to civilization. Today, immediately. And you never mention this to anyone. And option 2, there is no option 2. He smiled. Well, there is an option 2, but you won't like it. You're going to kill me for money. Money I wasn't even obligated to lend you. Not just for money, for betrayal, for years of pretending to be my friend while secretly despising me, for justice. This is crazy. You can't. I can. We're in the middle of the woods. Your body will never be found. Or if it is, it'll be a hunting accident. It happens all the time. Friends shooting each other, mistaking each other for deer. He stood up. Rifle now definitely aimed. Finger on trigger. I needed to move. Now. Before he decided it wasn't worth waiting for the money. That, eliminating me, was revenge enough. I dove, sideways, rolling behind a stump, shot. The crack sending birds flying from the trees. Bullet hitting wood where I had been. I didn't wait. I ran, toward the dense forest, toward cover, leaving my rifle behind. I didn't have time to grab it. Just run. Behind me, Evander's voice. Running only makes it worse. I'm going to find you, and when I do, it will be worse. Another shot. Closer. Something whizzing past my ear. So close I felt the air displacement. Branches whipped my face, tearing skin. My boots slipping on pine needles and wet leaves. My heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The forest was a maze. No trails. No clear directions, just endless trees and undergrowth that grabbed at me like hands, trying to hold me back. I needed a plan. I couldn't just run. Evander knew this forest. He had said he had been here before. He had an advantage, but me, I had. What? Fear. Adrenaline. Desperation. I changed direction. Towards the sound of water. I had heard a stream yesterday during our exploration. If I could reach it, follow it. It would lead to a river. The river would lead to a valley, to people, to help. Behind me. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Evander wasn't running. He was walking, conserving energy, knowing that eventually I would tire, slow down, make a mistake, a voice echoing through the trees. You know what's funny, Quillen? I planned this. From the moment I called, I knew you'd come, because you're predictable, always wanting to be the good guy, always trying to make up for being secretly selfish. I ignored it, kept moving, towards the sound of water. Louder now, closer. I emerged at the bank of a stream, small but fast, with slippery rocks covered in moss. I jumped, trying to cross. My foot slipped, falling, hitting my knee against a rock. Pain exploding but getting up, ignoring it, moving. Another shot. Water splashing where I had been. Evander had emerged from the forest, 50 meters away, reloading. I ran upstream, where the forest was denser, where cover was better. I tripped on a root, falling hard, air leaving my lungs, getting up, but slower now, body starting to fail, fatigue setting in, and I saw it. Ahead, a tree, old, fallen, hollow inside, large, enough to hide in. I crawled inside, contorting myself. The space narrow, dark, smelling of rotten wood and something that had died here long ago. I held my breath, listening. Footsteps, approaching, stopping, close, very close. Quillen, Evander's voice, singing now, like a child's game. I know you're close. I can smell your fear, like a cornered animal. Footsteps, circling, searching, approaching the trunk. I close my eyes, as if that would make me invisible. You know, he continued, it doesn't have to be this way. Come out, let's talk, like grown men. We can come to an agreement, maybe 20,000. You can afford 20,000, right? Silence, then laughter. Or maybe, I just enjoy this, the hunt, the fear, watching you run. Maybe the money never really mattered. Maybe I just wanted to make you feel what I felt when you abandoned me. Something hit the log, hard, his boot kicking. Are you in there? In this rotten tree trunk, hiding like a rat? I could hear his breathing now, heavy, excited, right outside. Right above the cracks where light filtered through, his hand sliding inside, groping blindly, fingers brushing my jacket. I couldn't stay. I couldn't. It broke. I kicked, violently, from inside, connecting with his arm. He screamed, backing away. I rolled out of the trunk, to the other side, standing up, running again. More shots, multiple. He was furious now, abandoning any pretense of controlled hunting. Just pure violence. You're going to die here. Do you understand? You can't escape. But I had to try. I had no choice. The stream widened, becoming a river, wider, deeper, and ahead, in the distance. Something that made my heart leap with hope. Smoke, structure, cabin, another cabin. Not ours, but someone else's. People, potential help. I ran toward it, with my last reserves of energy, my legs screaming, my lungs burning, but moving. I reached the clearing where the cabin was, bigger than ours, more established, with a truck parked outside. "Help!" I shouted. "Please! Someone is chasing me! He has a gun!" Door opening, man coming out, older, 60s, with his own rifle, alarmed expression. "What the hell? Man with a rifle trying to kill me, please call the police." The man looked past me, toward the woods, toward where Evander was emerging, rifle raised, but then sound, distant but unmistakable. Sirens. Sirens? Here, in the middle of the woods? Evander froze, listening. Then, panic on his face, he turned, running, back into the woods, disappearing. "Sirens?" I asked the man. "How?" "They're not real sirens. It's search and rescue. They ride through here on quads, signaling emergencies with horns. They must have gotten a report of gunshots." It happens sometimes during hunting season when people are irresponsible. I didn't care what they were. All that mattered was that they had scared Evander. They had given me my chance. "Please," I begged him. "I need to use your phone. Call the real police. This man. He brought me here, to hunt me, literally." The man looked at me, assessing whether I was crazy or telling the truth. Then, he saw something in my expression, in my wounds, in my genuine terror. "Come in. The phone is on the wall," I called. "The county sheriff," I reported. Everything. Evander, his threats, the gunshots, my approximate location. "They're on their way," said the dispatcher. "Stay in the cabin, don't go outside. If you see the suspect again, lock yourself in and wait." I spent the next 2 hours there, waiting, shaking, drinking coffee that the man, Caspian Erit, as he introduced himself, offered me. Telling him the story in fragments, the sheriff arrived, with 3 officers, armed. They took my statement. They organized a search for Evander. They recovered my rifle from the clearing where I'd left it. They found Evander that night, hiding in our cabin, trying to pack, to escape. They arrested him without incident. The rifle was empty. All the ammunition had been used up shooting at me. In his truck. They found evidence. A diary where he had planned everything. How he would lure me. How he would teach me a lesson. How he might kill me if I resisted. And details about the debt he had built up in his mind, growing from 20,000 to 35,000 to everything you have because you owe me your life. He was charged. Attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, kidnapping. The list went on. His defense tried to argue temporary insanity, psychotic episode, but the journals contradicted him, showing planning, premeditation, clear intent. He was convicted, 20 years, with the possibility of parole after 15 if behavior's good. And me, I survived, physically. Scratches and bruises healed. Injured knee recovered, but other scars remain. I can still hear his voice, in nightmares, calling my name, laughing about the hunt, the terror of being pursued by someone I had loved like a brother, someone I had trusted, who had used that trust to lure me into a trap where he planned to kill me, or maybe just scare me enough to pay up, to make me feel guilty forever. And the note, "Don't trust me." A real warning. From some part of Evander that still worked, that knew what he was planning was monstrous. Trying to give me a chance to escape, to survive, or part of the game, of the psychological torture, letting me know the danger was there, but without giving me a way to stop it. I'll never know, because I haven't spoken to Evander since. He sent me letters from prison. I don't open them. I burn them, unread, because I don't want to hear explanations, justifications, apologies, or worse, more threats, more promises that When he gets out, he'll finish what he started. Because the question remains, haunting me, on nights when I can't sleep, when I check the locks 3 times, when every shadow seems to contain a figure with a rifle. The question is, will he come back in 15 years or sooner if he gets parole? Will he come back for the debt he still believes I owe him? For revenge for ruining his life by surviving and reporting him? I don't know. And that not knowing, that constant fear, it's a prison of its own, one I share with him, even with him locked up, even with 1,000 miles between us. Because the knife, it's still with me. I kept it, as evidence first, then as a reminder that the person closest to you, the person you trust the most, can be the one who wants to hurt you the most, for reasons that only make sense to them, for debts you never knew you owed, for betrayals you never knew you committed. And that's the real horror, not the gunshots, not the chase, but the knowledge that friendship, brotherhood, love can all turn into hate, into violence, into hunting, without warning except a note that says, "Don't trust me." And now, I don't trust anyone completely. Because Evander taught me that even a best friend can be a predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A flash flood inundated the basement of my rented cabin in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, and as I pumped out the murky water, a soggy photo album floated toward me. I opened it, and I saw myself, my child's face, maybe 5 or 6 years old, in this very cabin, posing with a missing tooth smile next to a man. My father, Oberon Voss. But that was impossible, because I had never lived here, and my father had sworn with tears in his eyes, that he had burned every trace of that house, of that place, of that time in our lives that we were never to remember. My name is Nephili Voss, 32 years old, occupational therapist in Charleston, and that weekend of March 23rd, 2024, I had rented this cabin by the New River on a whim. I needed to escape the city, work, the recent memory of breaking up with my fiancée Quillen, who decided 2 months before the wedding that he wasn't ready for commitment. The cabin on the Airbnb listing promised peaceful seclusion, river views, perfect for healing the soul. The name of the place didn't even register when I booked. Riverside Cabin. Generic. It could have been anywhere. I arrived on Friday afternoon under a stormy sky, puffy gray clouds, heavy air laden with humidity. But the place was charming despite the threatening weather. A 2-story structure with a large porch overlooking the river, which murmured 30 meters away. Rustic but cozy interior, stone fireplace, small but fully equipped kitchen, stairs leading up to the attic bedroom, and stairs leading down to the basement, which, according to the owner's notes left on the table, sometimes collects a little water during heavy rains, but generally drains well. I spent Friday settling in, lighting a fire, preparing a simple dinner, reading by the flames with a glass of wine, listening to the rain begin around 8 p.m., soft at first, then more insistent, tapping on the roof like impatient fingers. By midnight, it was pouring. Thunder rattled the windows. Lightning turned the night into a strobe-lit day. The river roared louder, its voice changing from a gentle murmur to something more menacing. I went to sleep worried but not alarmed. Storms passed. They always passed. Saturday dawned gray and wet. The rain had slowed to a steady drizzle. But the river, God, the river had transformed. It no longer murmured. It roared. Murky brown instead of light green, swollen to twice its size. Reaching areas that yesterday had been dry shore, I made coffee. I ate breakfast looking out the window at the chaos of the water, and then I heard it. A sound from below, from the basement, like splashing, water moving. I went down the basement stairs. I opened the door, and water, maybe a foot deep, covered the concrete floor. Murky, cold, with things floating in it, boxes, pieces of wood, debris, Shit, I muttered. This was more than a little water. This was a real flood. I found rain boots in the closet on the first floor. I put them on. I went back downstairs. The water was up to my mid-calf, freezing even through the rubber. There was a submersible pump in the corner. The owner had mentioned it in his notes. If the basement floods, use the pump. Plug it in and let it run until it drains. I plugged it in. It started humming, spitting water through a hose that led up and out through a small window, slowly. It would be a slow process, but at least it was working. I moved around the basement, trying to save boxes that looked important, lifting them to higher shelves. Most of it was junk. Christmas decorations, rusty tools, things no one had touched in years. And then I saw it. Something floating. Near the back wall, rectangular, with a leather cover. A photo album. Old, soaked. But the cover still intact. I fished it out of the water. Heavy, dripping. I took it upstairs, to the kitchen table under better light. I opened it carefully. The pages were wet, the ink smudged in places. But the photos, protected by plastic, were still visible. And there I was, little girl, 5 or 6 years old, with brown hair and pigtails, smiling with missing teeth. Wearing a dress I recognized from photos of my childhood, the yellow one with flowers that Mom had bought me for Easter in 1998. But the background, the cabin, this cabin, I could see the porch behind me, the stone fireplace visible through the window, the river in the distance, and the man standing next to me, hand on my shoulder, smiling at the camera. Dad, Oberon, younger, in his 30s, before his hair turned gray, before the lines deepened. But definitely him. I turned the page. More photos. Me fishing in the river with Dad. Me building sandcastles on the shore. Me on the porch with ice cream dripping down my chin. All of us here, in this cabin, in this place. But that couldn't be. Because I remembered my childhood. We had lived in Charleston, in a small apartment. Mom worked at the hospital, Dad at the chemical plant. We had never had a cabin. We had never spent summers by the river. Or had we? The photos were evidence, real, tangible. They couldn't be faked. This was photography from the 90s, before Photoshop, before easy digital manipulation. But why didn't I remember? Why had Dad never mentioned this place? And then, memory. Fragment. Buried deep, but now rising like a drowned thing floating to the surface. Mom screaming. We're never going back there. Do you understand? Never. Dad, crying. Something I had never seen him do before or since. I burned everything. The photos, the memories, everything. Like you said, it's dead. That place is dead to us. Me, little, maybe 7, listening from my bedroom, not understanding, frightened by the intensity, by the pain in their voices. What had happened? What had happened in this cabin that made Dad promise to burn everything? That made Mom, who died of cancer when I was 12, insist that we never go back? My phone. I needed to call Dad, ask, demand an explanation. But when I took out my phone, no signal. Of course, remote cabin, storm, towers probably down. The owner's Wi-Fi wasn't working either, probably downed lines. I was cut off, with an album of impossible photos, with questions growing like tumors. I went back to the photos, searching, clues, something that would explain, and there, on the last page, a different photo. Not of me, but of Dad, with another man, both young, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling, on the porch of this cabin, the other man. I didn't recognize him, 30-something, blonde hair, strong build. A smile that didn't reach his eyes, something in his expression that was harsh, even in a celebratory photo. On the back of the photo, writing, faded but legible. Oberon and Caspian, partners, 1997. Partners. Dad had never mentioned a partner. His job at the chemical plant had always been as an employee, not an owner, not a partner in anything. Who was Caspian, and what had happened between them? Sound. Upstairs. On the porch. Interrupting my thoughts. Footsteps. Heavy. Boots on wood. Not the sound of rain, but definitely footsteps. I froze. The owner coming to check on the flood, but he hadn't said he was coming. And with the weather like this, it seemed unlikely. Another step. Another. Approaching the door. Then, a knock. Loud. Urgent. I got up, moving toward the door. Who is it? Voice. Male. Hoarse. Open up. I need shelter. The flood caught me. I hesitated. Instinct to help someone in need battling against something. Primitive warning saying, no. Please, it's getting worse out there. My truck is stuck. I opened it. Just slightly. Chain still on. Man. 50-something. Completely soaked. With blonde hair, now gray. Still strong build but with a belly. Dirty work clothes. And eyes. Those eyes that even decades later, I recognized from the photo. Caspian. It had to be Caspian. Thank God, he gasped. I thought I was going to drown out there. Who are you? My voice firmer than expected. Caspian Strand. I live downstream. Well, I lived. My house is underwater. I was trying to get to higher ground when I saw this cabin. Can I come in? Please. The name. The face. They matched. But something about the way he looked at me. Not gratitude for shelter, but recognition, as if he knew who I was. Why are you looking at me like that? Like what? But his eyes shifted, to the table, to the open album, and his expression changed, from feigned despair to something darker. You found the photos. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, as if he had expected me to, or planned for me to. You left them floating, I said. Suddenly understanding. The flood didn't accidentally unearth them. You put them there for me to find. Clever. Like your old man. He smiled, without humor. Yes, I left them, as an invitation. I wanted you to know, before we talked. Before we talked about what? About what your father did to me. What he owes me, what you, as his daughter, are going to pay on his behalf. Terror rose. Real, visceral. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know you. But I know you. I've known you since you were 5, when your father and I were partners, when we shared this cabin, when we worked together in, well, let's call it the family business. Dad worked at the chemical plant. Is that what he told you? She laughed. And you believed him. Your father, Oberon Voss, he was my partner in a methamphetamine operation. We cooked here, in this cabin, away from prying eyes. We sold. We made a fortune. And then, your mother found out. She threatened to take you away, to report us. And Oberon. He chose. He chose you over the business, over me, over our agreement. That's a lie. Is it? Why else would he erase every trace of this place? Why else would he make you forget? He moved closer to the album, pointing at photos. You were a witness, little one. But you were here during Cook's. You saw, and your father was afraid you'd remember, that you'd talk, so they made you forget. Therapy, probably. Or just never mentioning it until your child's brain suppressed it. Even if that's true, what does it have to do with me? It happened decades ago. It has everything to do with it. Because when your father left, he took the money, all of it, our reserve, $200,000, leaving me with nothing, with debts, with suppliers who wanted blood. I spent 10 years in prison for those debts. I lost everything, my family, my life, while your father raised you in comfort, shopping with my money. I don't have any money, I'm not responsible. But he is, and since I can't get to him yet, you will serve as a message, as partial payment. He pushed the door, hard. The chain held, but barely. I slammed it shut, turning the bolt, backing away. Don't be stupid, he shouted from outside. There's nowhere to go. The river is rising. This cabin will be an island soon, and I'm the only one who knows a safe way out. I ran to the back window. Looking out, he was right. The water had risen dramatically even in the last hour, now reaching the back porch, licking the steps. The forest behind was soaked, impassable, and without knowing the terrain, without knowing where the water was shallow or deep. I could drown trying to escape. I was trapped, with a man who blamed my father for ruining his life. What did he want? What? Revenge? Money he didn't have? My death as a message? Crash. Glass breaking. The side window. He had broken the window, his arm reaching in, unlocking from the inside. I didn't have time to think, just react. I grabbed something, anything. Cast iron skillet from the stove. Heavy, solid. The window opened, his body starting to climb up. I swung with all my strength, connecting with his shoulder, with his head. He screamed, falling backward, out, but not unconscious, not stopped, just angry. "Bitch," he roared. "You'll pay for that." I closed the window. I pushed furniture against it. Table, chairs. Not enough. I knew it wasn't enough. I needed a better position, better defense. The attic. I could go up there. Barricade myself in. Wait for what? For the water to rise until we both drowned? No. I needed a real plan. Attic windows, skylights. I could break them, get out onto the roof, wait there, signal for help if anyone passed by. It was something. Better than waiting here while he found another way in. I ran up the stairs. To the attic bedroom, closing the door behind me. No lock, but at least a barrier. The attic had 2 skylights, both closed, with latches that probably hadn't been opened in years. I pushed the bed against the door, adding weight, buying time. Downstairs, sounds, wood splintering. He had found something. An axe from the shed, perhaps. Or a bar, breaking his way in. I worked on the first skylight, the rusty latch, stuck. I turned, I pushed, nothing. Second skylight. Same problem. "Nafil," his voice from below. "Nice name. I remember you. Sweet little girl who used to call me Uncle Caspian. I wonder if you'll remember when I'm done with you." His footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, deliberate, climbing. The latch finally gave way. The skylight opening, rain pouring in. Wind, but also escape. I pushed myself through the opening. Barely big enough. Shoulders scraping, but out, to the roof, sloped, slippery from rain, asphalt shingles like ice under my hands and knees. Behind me. Crash. He had broken through the bedroom door. "You can't hide up there," he shouted. "The roof won't hold, and when you fall, I'll be waiting." I crawled toward the peak of the roof, needing advantage, needing to see. The view was horrible. The river now occupied what had been the road. The cabin, effectively an island, surrounded by roaring brown water with debris, trees, furniture, parts of other structures passing by in the current. There was no rescue in sight, no other buildings, no people. Just nature reclaiming everything. And then, Caspian's head emerging from the skylight, climbing up behind me with something in his hand, a pipe, metal, lead perhaps, from the cabin's plumbing. "End of the road," he said, smiling, rain running down his face like tears. "Your old man thought he could escape, start over, forget. But nothing is forgotten. Everything comes back, and now you pay his debt." He charged, slipping slightly but maintaining his balance, swinging the pipe. I moved, toward the edge of the roof, toward the water. There was no other choice. Staying meant death. Jumping meant maybe survival, maybe drowning, but at least a chance. "No," he shouted, reaching me. Fingers grazing my jacket, I jumped. The impact with the water was shocking, icy, violent. The current immediately grabbed me, pulling, submerging. I fought toward the surface, gasping, spitting, trying to get my bearings. The cabin passing by, fast. The current stronger than I had imagined. Caspian on the roof, watching. Deciding whether to follow, whether to jump after me. But then, a crack. Horrible, deep. The cabin shaking, the foundations giving way under the pressure of the water. I saw his expression change, from anger to terror. As the roof tilted, shifted, he slipped, falling, not into the water but through the collapsing roof, disappearing into the crumbling structure. And me, in the water, struggling, clinging to passing debris, large branch, solid, floating. I held on, letting the current carry me, not trying to swim, just holding on, surviving. I don't know how long it was, minutes, hours, time lost meaning, only water existed, cold, struggled to breathe, until the current changed, slowing down, widening, becoming less violent, and ahead, structure, bridge, small, highway, over the river, and on the bridge, vehicle, truck. With emergency lights, search and rescue. I gathered my last bit of energy, letting go of the branch, swimming, weakly, toward the bridge, towards the light, towards help. Hands grab me, pulling me out of the water. Voices. I've got her. She's alive. They wrap me in blankets, put me in the truck, heating blowing, paramedics checking vital signs. Is there anyone else? They asked. Was she alone? There was. A man. In the cabin. Caspian Strand, I think. When it collapsed, We'll send a team when it's safe. Did you know this man? No. Yes. He was. I don't know what he was. They found Caspian 3 days later, when the water receded, in the rubble of the cabin. Dead. Crushed when the roof collapsed. Drowned when the water filled the remains. They found more, when they excavated the entire wreckage. Old lab. In the basement. Methamphetamine equipment from the 90s. Long inactive but still there. Evidence of what the cabin had been. Of what Caspian had said was true. I called Dad. From the hospital. I told him. Everything. The album. Caspian, his accusations. Long silence. Then. I thought I had burned everything. All the photos. All the evidence. But I must have. Forgotten the album in the basement, where your mother never went. So it's true. All of it. Yes. His voice broken. I'm not proud. I was young, stupid, desperate. Caspian convinced me. We said just for a year, just to get ahead. And then your mother found out. She threatened to take you away, and I had to choose. Obviously, I chose you. I took my half of the money. I left Caspian. And I tried to erase it. Start over. I thought if we never talked about it, never went there, eventually, it would be like it never happened. But it did, and it almost killed me. I know, and I'm sorry, more than you can know. I spent decades afraid that one day, Caspian would come, or the police would find out, or you would remember and hate me. And now, all those things have happened. I don't hate you, I wish I had known. I wish you had trusted me with the truth. Would it change anything? I thought about that, honestly. Would it? Knowing that my father had been a drug dealer, that my early childhood was built on meth money, that the smiling man in photos had been a criminal. I don't know, I admitted. But at least it wouldn't have been a surprise. At least I wouldn't have been alone, in that cabin, with photo albums of a life I didn't remember, with a man who blamed me for sins I didn't commit. I'm sorry, he said again, for everything. And that was it, the conversation. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the trauma of being chased, attacked, almost drowned. But it provided context, truth, as horrible as it was. I decided not to press charges against Dad for events 30 years ago. The statute of limitations had passed anyway. And honestly, what would I gain? He had come out. He had changed. He had been a decent father since then. But the trust, it was damaged. Because he had lied, for decades. By omission, but a lie nonetheless. And the questions remain, haunting me, on nights when I can't sleep. When the rain hits too hard, when I see swollen rivers on the news, what else don't I remember? What else was suppressed or erased? How much of my childhood was real versus constructed? And darker, are there others, other associates of Dad's, others he defrauded, others who might come looking someday. Revenge, debt, because Caspian found it. After 30 years, he waited, he planned, he used the flood as cover. He put the album where he knew he would find it, probably watching the cabin, hoping that someone from the Voss family would eventually rent it. Because that was the kind of patience he had, the kind of dedication to grudges. Are there others with that same dedication, waiting for their moment? I don't know. And that not knowing haunts me more than the memory of freezing water, more than the sound of the roof collapsing, more than the sight of Caspian disappearing into the rubble, because the album, the photos of the smiling girl that I had been, represent a testament to a life I don't remember, to inherited sins I didn't commit, to debts someone believes I must pay. And even though Caspian is dead, even though the cabin is destroyed, even though the photos are secured as police evidence, the question remains, floating in my mind like an album in rising water. What else is buried? In basements, in pasts, in the memory of a man I call father, but who, it turns out, I barely know. And when will the water rise high enough to bring those secrets to the surface? To make them float toward me like another impossible album, with another soaked stranger knocking on my door, with another debt I never knew existed? I don't know. And the horror of that, of waiting, of knowing that the past never really dies, that it can always come back, when you least expect it, during a storm, during a flood, during a moment when you finally feel safe. That horror doesn't end, it just waits, like Caspian waited, like the water waits, rising, always rising, until everything buried, eventually floats to the surface.